What happens when a reborn girl tries her absolute best to avoid a dark fantasy romance plot, only to wake up on a pitch-black, stormy night with her entire town suddenly missing? Wet, out of breath, and sprinting frantically through the pouring rain, little Arenal clutches her drenched cloak, panting while searching for any sign of life. Shouting into the roaring tempest at the top of her lungs, she calls out for her guardians, Uncle Parmal, Uncle Amos, and Aunt Pilot. But no matter how loud she screams, not a single light flickers on in the dark, empty streets. Slugging through the mud as heavy rain spatters across discarded farming tools, she checks the deserted courtyards with growing terror. Where on earth did everyone disappear to without leaving a single trace? Dropping to her knees on the cold, soaked ground, her small body trembles as the terrifying realization hits her. Footprints vanish straight into the darkness, leaving her completely stranded in an abandoned ghost town. Tears mix with rainwater as a blinding bolt of lightning strikes across the pitch-black sky. Wiping her eyes, she snarls through her hiccups, wondering how fate could possibly throw her into such an unfair situation. Suddenly flipping from sobbing mess to full-blown anger, her cute chibi face fumes in absolute disbelief. Seriously, how does a whole darn village just vanish into thin air overnight without leaving a single memo? Manhwa protagonists really can't catch a break for even 5 minutes, can they? Standing alone beneath the massive ancient tree while rain pours down in sheets, the young girl introduces herself as Arenal Mila. Right now, she's facing the absolute worst nightmare of her whole second life. Clenching her small fist tightly inside her wet sleeve, she grits her teeth in frustration. She genuinely did nothing wrong, yet at just 10 years old, she's suddenly handed the ultimate betrayal. Flashback time. You see, in her previous life, she was a total victim of the iconic, unstoppable force known as Truck-kun. Yep, Truck-kun struck again, sending her straight into another dimension. And to make matters worse, she didn't just reincarnate into any ordinary world, she got possessed right into a super dark, angst-filled romance fantasy novel. The original story was titled I Will Stop Being the Tyrant's Mistress, featuring a tragic main couple trapped in a toxic web of obsession and imperial politics. In the book, the tragic heroine Amelia was sold off as a slave, constantly fleeing from the obsessive grasp of a ruthless tyrant ruler. Driven completely mad by her escape, the tyrant emperor launched a full-scale continental war just to drag her back, burning entire kingdoms to ash in the process. Talk about an extreme red flag protagonist. The male lead responsible for all that chaotic destruction was Parmas Aslet, widely feared across the land as the legendary silver-haired devil. Alongside his 4 bloodthirsty imperial ministers, Parmas was destined to plunge the entire continent into an era of pure darkness and fear. But hey, Arenal proudly explains that all that dramatic royal nonsense had zero relation to her, standing inside her cozy wooden house like an unbothered background extra. With a confident little smirk on her face, she reveals the secret behind her absolute peace of mind. She was reborn as a simple farmer's daughter in Galnam, a super remote village nestled deep inside the peaceful mountains, far away from any noble drama. The local villagers were always super sweet, constantly offering her freshly baked cookies and warm smiles as she walked down the sunlit paths. Sparkle mode activated. Ariel gasping giggle. Ariel poses cheerfully, explaining that being born a humble peasant meant she was 100% safe from getting dragged into the tyrant's chaotic love story. Snickering in the dark while imagining the main characters suffering in their tragic spotlight, she celebrates living in a cozy mountain haven where nothing bad ever happens. Okay, artist, that dark lighting contrast in this panel is absolute perfection. Galanum was an idyllic paradise where friendly neighbors helped each other every single day. Sure, she was a tiny bit sad about not being a rich noble lady, but avoiding death flags was totally worth it. Besides, being born into a normal household meant she got to experience the warm love of a sweet mother who adored her from the moment she was born. Look at those big chubby cheeks. Baby Arenal staring up with huge golden eyes is literally the cutest thing ever drawn in a webtoon. Sitting together on the cozy sofa, her loving mother read storybooks to her every single evening. She was told her father passed away early, which kept her childhood completely peaceful and worry-free. Surrounded by beautiful blooming flowers, her mother gave her endless affection, making sure she never felt lonely for even a second. Wrapping her tiny arms around her mom's neck, Arenal cherished every moment, loving her mother with all her heart. This unconditional warmth was something she never knew in her past life on Earth, where her father was totally absent and her birth mother neglected her amidst empty bottles. But just when she thought she could finally live a happy, normal life and repay all that motherly affection, tragedy struck. When Arenal turned 7, her mother suddenly fell terribly ill and passed away, leaving the poor girl crying her heart out in devastation. Standing all alone at the cold doorway during winter, surrounded by falling snowflakes, shiver! The lonely child felt completely lost in the dark. But the sweet villagers didn't leave her behind. Aunt Piolette wrapped her up in a tight, comforting embrace while Uncle Amos and the neighbors wept right alongside her, bringing fresh meat, giant fish, crispy vegetables, and warm bread to her doorstep. The whole village stepped up to shower her with food and affection. Thanks to these super kind, if slightly weird neighbors, little Arenal was able to smile bright again and overcome her deep sorrow. Of course, she also had to secretly prepare for the ultimate catastrophic disaster that was scheduled to strike the Empire in 3 short years. Holding up a glass jar filled with bright pink jam, she triumphantly introduces her master creation. Behold, the ultimate red sugar beet sherbet. It's super delicious, crazy healthy, and best of all, it stays fresh forever without spoiling. The village blacksmith and Aunt Piolette lean in with amazed expressions, asking where on earth a little kid learned how to preserve beets like a master chef. Arenal just puffs her chest proudly, claiming it's a top-secret recipe. Shifting back and forth like a hyperactive chibi selling street food, she enthusiastically tells everyone to freeze it in the ice valley for an hour to turn it into the ultimate frozen dessert. Taking a sweet spoon lick, Aunt Piolette smiles warmly, praising how incredible it tastes even without being frozen. Suddenly, Uncle Amos silently sneaks up from behind with a spoon, taking a bite and nodding in approval. Arenal jumps back in shock, wondering when the heck he even walked into the room. She eagerly announces that she'll teach the exact step-by-step recipe to all the villagers so everyone can stock up their pantries immediately. Hugging the sweet jam jar close to her chest with an adorable smile, she looks completely satisfied with her anti-famine preparations. Pointing toward the sky, she reminds the villagers about the upcoming disaster, warning them that a ruthless tyrant ruler will soon trigger a continent-wide famine. According to the novel's original timeline, severe food shortages will hit the nation hard, leaving thousands of civilians starving in the cold. That's why her daily routine consists of writing out preserved food guidebooks and assigning mandatory cooking homework to all the adult villagers. Imagine a 10-year-old child handing out homework to burly adult farmers. That's hilarious. Looking down at the red jar in her hands, her expression softens. She loves these people so much, and she's determined to protect every single one of them, no matter what. With sparkling golden eyes full of confidence, she cheers them on, declaring that as long as they follow her instructions step by step, their village will easily survive the crisis. Except the villagers aren't cheering at all. The big muscle man stands frozen with sweat dripping down his face while Uncle Amos and Aunt Piolette exchange extremely tense looks. Uh-oh, hold on a second. Look at the sudden dramatic shift in their eyes. The muscular farmer stares down with a dead serious expression, while Uncle Amos and Aunt Piolette glare with menacing shadow overlays. Did Arenal just accidentally trigger a massive secret about her sweet neighbors? Before the muscular farmer can spill any dangerous details, Uncle Amos suddenly lunges forward and forcefully clamps both hands over his mouth. Sweat dripping down her face, Aunt Piolette waves her hands frantically, assuring Arenal that it's absolutely nothing and telling her not to pay any attention to him at all. Out of nowhere, another villager comes tumbling across the dirt road, face planting into the ground with a dramatic crash. Arenal gasps in surprise, instantly recognizing him as Uncle Zimmer, while the rest of the villagers scramble around in total panic. Looking down at the grown man sprawled helplessly on the dirt, Arenal sighs heavily, scolding him for not watching his own step while he mutters about getting overly excited just seeing her from afar. Meet Uncle Zimmer. Despite possessing model-tier handsome features, he's known throughout the entire mountain settlement as the absolute clumsiest adult around. Crouching down to examine his scraped knee, Arenal fumes with a pout, mocking tone. wondering aloud how on earth a full-grown adult manages to injure himself far more often than a 10-year-old child. Throwing Zimmer over his broad shoulder like a sack of potatoes, Uncle Amos chuckles awkwardly, making a hasty excuse that they need to get going right away, while Aunt Pillet suddenly claims she has urgent laundry to hang up. Watching the entire group scatter in record time, Arinelle can't help but notice the weird tension between the villagers and Zimmer. Seriously, why does everyone always act so strangely distant whenever he's around? She tries to rationalize it to herself, figuring that since Zimmer behaves so awkwardly even around a little kid like her, it makes sense that the other adults don't know how to handle him either. Pushing himself up off the dirt path, Zimmer winces in pain, his brown hair falling messily over his bruised face as he struggles to stand. Feeling a sudden wave of pity for the poor guy, Arinelle's soft golden eyes melt as she tells him to hold still so she can properly clean up his bleeding knee. You see, her deep dedication to looking after Zimmer isn't just out of pity, it goes all the way back to her mother's final moments on her deathbed. Before passing away, her mother made one final crucial request, begging her young daughter to always take extra special care of Uncle Zimmer no matter what happened. Arinelle gently wrapping crisp white bandages around his knee. Arinelle remembers her mom explaining that Zimmer was a dear childhood friend of her late father. Even so, chibi Arinelle puffs her cheeks in exasperation. Telling a 7-year-old grieving child to babysit a massive grown adult man is totally absurd, Mom. Huffy and dramatically turning her back, she crosses her small arms, huffing that she's definitely never going to patch up his dumb injuries ever again. Suddenly, a pitch-black shadow falls over Zimmer's face as he quietly whispers back, "Really?" Throwing on a tragic romance lead filter complete with blooming white lilies, Zimmer looks up at her with soulful, tear-filled puppy eyes, whispering, asking if she's truly heartless enough to leave him hurt. Waving her chibi fists in total defeat, Arinelle inwardly screams in anger. Using an absolute top-tier visual attack against a 10-year-old is completely unfair. She's always been totally weak to handsome faces in both of her lives. Giving in with an exasperated sigh, she mutters that there's no way she could ever actually ignore him when he looks at her like that. Zimmer's soft-spoken response cuts through the warm breeze as he murmurs that seeing her upset hurts his own feelings far more than any physical injury ever could. Sitting side by side against the rustic wooden fence under the golden afternoon rays, the duo shares a rare moment of quiet peace. A dramatic crimson glow flashes across Zimmer's intense gaze as he reminds her that she's the most precious person in the world to him, asking if she really wants to break his heart. Golden roses bloom across the frame as he softly begs her never to get hurt, even if it's just to keep a smile on his face. Looking down at her small bandaged hands, Arinelle's golden eyes glisten with touched emotion, her pout softening into genuine warmth. Zimmer smiles gently, a faint blush dusting his cheeks as he gazes down at his tiny guardian. Reaching out a large, comforting hand, he tenderly pats her golden hair, his gentle touch filling her with a sweet sense of security. Smiling softly, Zimmer warmly declares that out of everyone in the entire world, Arinelle will always be his absolute favorite person. Until a massive rumble erupts directly from his empty stomach, completely ruining the heartwarming mood. Arinelle blinks in total silence as Zimmer freezes mid-sentence. Tilting her head with a mischievous grin, she asks if the poor guy hasn't eaten a single bite all day, to which Zimmer nods his head in sheepish embarrassment. Shaking her head with a cute sigh, Arinelle invites him over to her house for dinner, causing Zimmer's eyes to light up like a joyful puppy as he clasps his hands together in pure gratitude. Soon enough, a steaming bowl of warm vegetable stew packed with fresh carrots, potatoes, and broccoli is set upon the rustic wooden table. Zimmer devours the meal like a starving man, praising her incredible cooking skills, while Arinelle smugly reminds herself that as a reincarnated adult, basic culinary skills are a walk in the park. Watching him polish off his plate with cat-like chubby cheeks, Arinelle rests her head in her hands, sigh, genuinely wondering how on earth this goofy guy is going to survive the imminent imperial famine on his own. Zimmer instantly holds out his empty bowl, asking for seconds, confirming Arinelle's deep fear that he would definitely starve to death without her constant supervision. Smiling warmly, she reassures him that he's always welcome to come over to her house whenever his stomach starts growling. Framed by blooming cherry blossoms, Arinelle offers her sweet support, determined to keep her goofy neighbor well-fed and happy. Leaning in close, she urgently adds that that he must keep their dinner dates a total secret from the rest of the village, so the other sweet neighbors don't get jealous and feel left out. Zimmer's expression suddenly turns dark and intense, his handsome brow furrowing as he quietly calls out her name. Turning back to look at him, Aaron casually suggests creating a secret signal just for the two of them so they can always identify each other no matter what happens. Gesturing across the dimly lit dining table, she eagerly explains that a private secret code will guarantee they can recognize one another even if they get separated in a big crowd. Zimmer, balling his right hand into a fist, gently taps a distinct rhythmic pattern onto the hard wooden table. Looking up at her with soft, encouraging eyes, he asks if Arnold wants to give the special knock a try herself. Copying his exact beat, Arnold taps her small knuckles on the wood, making Zimmer smile bright as he praises her for getting the rhythm completely right. With a beaming smile, Zimmer explains that with this secret signal, they will always be able to reunite quickly, even if fate ever pulls them apart. Aaron beams back brightly, while Zimmer silently thinks to himself how truly happy he is to share a secret bond with her, firmly believing their happy days would last forever. Except flashback over, shift back to the freezing rain-soaked night. Standing alone in her dark hooded cloak with rain sheets pouring down around her, Aaron holds a soggy letter in her hands. Tears mix with cold rainwater on her flushed cheeks as she grips her cloak, overwhelmed by the crushing reality of her sudden abandonment. The letter left behind contained only a brief cryptic message, revealing that every single villager vanished overnight, promising they would return to her someday. Fast forward 1 full year later. Under the warm morning sun, 12-year-old Aaron works diligently in the lush green fields, harvesting giant red sugar beets in her sun hat. She's been holding down the entire ghost town completely by herself, determined to survive the approaching continent-wide famine no matter what. Brushing a stray golden lock from her sun-drenched forehead, Aaron gleefully hoists a freshly harvested red sugar beet high into the air, her face lit up with pure, prideful bliss. Looking down into the woven basket, dozens of radiant red roots overflow in neat, glossy piles. Hugging the heavy basket tightly against her apron with a determined grunt, Aaron steadies her footing in the soft dirt field. Look at that terrifying dark silhouette. The artist really pulled out all the stops to make Prince Parmes look like a total final boss before he even takes the throne. Dramatic text panels recall the grim lore of the original web novel, warning that in just 2 short years, the ruthless tyrant Parmes Azlet will seize the imperial crown, ushering in an unprecedented great famine across the entire realm. Glowing text banners reiterate that under Parmes' tyranny, any citizen who dares criticize the crown will face immediate execution, fueling Aaron's desperate drive to prepare her reserve so she never succumbs to that tragic fate. Snapping back to the present with a proud chuckle, Aaron vividly imagines the astonished faces of the old village elders praising her unbelievable farming talents. But as the warm sunlight shifts over her golden eyes, her cheerful grin fades into a quiet, wistful gaze. Oh man, the emotional shift here hits right in the feels. Aaron acts so tough and mature, but she's still just a kid missing her home. Overcast memories float through her mind of the beloved villagers who vanished a year ago, leaving behind lingering echoes of their warm smiles and shared meals. Sitting quietly inside her cozy wooden kitchen, Aaron slices away at a fresh beet with her small knife, reminding herself that she must stockpile enough food for everyone until the day they finally return. Lined along the wooden countertops, crate after crate of plump red sugar beets glisten in the sunlight, as Aaron reflects on how painfully terrifying those early days of abandonment truly were. Flashback memories paint a heartbreaking picture of a tear-stained little girl huddled silently on her bed, unable to eat for a whole week, until she eventually summoned the courage to step outside and discover the parting gifts left behind by Caleb's departed villagers. A beast trap, beef jerky, a cute dress, and a library key? Talk about the ultimate survival starter pack from a loving village. Visual banners reveal Uncle Zimmer's dried beef jerky, Uncle Panel's heavy iron beast trap, Aunt Pilot's hand-knitted frill dress designed for her future growth, and Uncle Amos's brass library key. Looking forward with shining, tear-glistening eyes, Aranelle softly promises herself that as long as she lives strong and healthy, fate will surely bring them all back together one day. Back in the bright sunlight garden, Aranel wipes sweat from her forehead with a heavy sigh, chuckling softly to herself about how far she's come since those dark, lonely days. Suddenly, quiet footsteps echo across the wooden threshold behind her, prompting Aranel to turn her head toward the doorway. That instant reaction shift from casual gardening mode to total cute excitement is top-tier adorable. Look at her golden eyes sparkle. Her eyes light up with immediate delight as she catches sight of a familiar figure entering the cottage. Standing before her in the warm sunlight is Mars, a stoic boy dressed in an oversized dark hooded cloak and a mysterious white eye mask cover. Narrative text panels explain that Mars is this mysterious orphan child who suddenly drifted into the quiet village a year ago. Ever since his unexpected arrival, Mars has quietly stayed by Aranel's side, helping her haul heavy crop baskets and complete daily farm chores. Mars sitting up in that tree, munching on a raw beet like a wild raccoon is absolutely iconic. He really had zero manners. Flashback banners reveal that 1 year ago, Aranel's initial impression of Mars was far from pleasant when she caught him perched in a tree branch, greedily devouring raw red beets straight from her collection. Remembering how she frantically waved her arms in outrage while Mars spat out the bitter raw juice, Aranel remembers scolding him for greedily eating her prized harvest without asking. Flashing back to his moody antics, Mars would sprint away into the forest whenever Aranel tried to start a conversation. Pouting her cheeks in comical frustration, Aranel recalls how deeply annoyed she used to get by his completely uncooperative, silent attitude. Aranel's empathy is honestly her greatest superpower. Even as a kid, she looks past his bad attitude to see the pain behind it. Yet, staring closely at the boy's guarded stance, her golden gaze softened with growing curiosity and concern. Text boxes note that even after several days passed, no adults or search parties ever arrived in the village looking for the lost child. Watching the hooded boy sprint through the tall wild grass alone, Aranel wondered why anyone would leave a young boy to wander the countryside without protection. Contemplating his strange white mask, she realized she had never once seen his bare face or heard the sound of his actual voice. Aranel declaring, as the older one, I should be more understanding, is peak big sister energy. She's literally a kid herself. Deciding to take the high road, Aranel resolved to act like a responsible older sister, leaving a covered plate of sweet food on the garden bench for the skittish boy. Approaching the wooden bench with silent steps, Mars slowly reaches out to pull back the white cloth cover over the basket. Deep behind the pale mask, his sharp brown eye widens with quiet wonder as he gazes at what lies underneath. Inside the basket rests a neatly sealed glass jar full of glistening candied beet treats, paired with a handwritten note signed by A that reads, "Red sugar beets don't taste good raw and might give you a stomachache, so eat this instead." Holding the jar of sweet preserves in his gloved hands, Mars stares at the cute note in stunned silence. Walking up behind him with gentle steps, Aranel friendly points out they still haven't formally introduced themselves to each other yet. Look at that breathtaking lighting around Aranel. She literally looks like a little angel coming to rescue this traumatized boy from his darkness. With a sparkling smile that brightens the entire forest clearance, she proudly places her hand over her chest, introducing herself as Aranel Mila. Turning his hooded head toward her, Mars remains completely motionless, gazing at her radiant smile through his pale mask. Sweat dropping at his persistent silence, Aranel tilts her head with a flustered chuckle, asking if giving his name is too difficult of a question. Thoughtful text bubbles convey her inner realization that forced questioning might trigger painful memories for a child wandering alone. Tapping her chin in deep thought, Aranel ponders how inconvenient it will be if she has to keep calling him, "Hey kid," without a proper title. Pointing up toward the twilight sky where a reddish planet glimmers among the stars, she brightens up, suggesting the nickname Mars, a name that sounds similar to Mask while representing the mysterious red desert planet. Mars stands frozen before her, his dark cape fluttering softly in the gentle evening breeze. Offering her warmest, most genuine smile, Aranel gazes into his eyes with complete acceptance and kindness. Host commentary? You can literally see the ice around Mars's heart melting away in this frame. That subtle eye widening says everything. Beneath the shadow of his hood, Mars stares intensely at her golden smile, his guarded heart visibly softening. Giving a tiny, subtle nod of approval, Mars accepts the name, prompting Aranel to gasp with overjoyed excitement as she catches his rare response. A beautiful montage unfolds as the two children sit side by side beneath a giant ancient oak tree, sharing freshly baked bread loaves during a sunny afternoon picnic. Walking along the dusty village trails together, Mars happily carries heavy supply bags while Aranel trots beside him with her small wicker basket. And the text banners get all heartfelt, saying that over a whole year, Mars became her closest, most precious companion, completely curing that deep loneliness in her heart. Seeing them hold hands like little besties is so wholesome. They went from fighting over raw beets to being inseparable soulmates. Standing side by side in soft pastel light, the two children firmly hold hands, bound by an unbreakable bond of trust. Lying back on a checkered blanket under the night sky, Aranel stretches out comfortably, sighing contentedly, sighing about how much work they accomplished together. Reaching her hand upward toward the sparkling cosmic canopy, Aranel marvels at how extraordinarily bright and dense the stars appear tonight. Turning her head to beam happily at Mars lying beside her, Aranel softly confesses that while being alone would have been unbearable, having him by her side has made every single day truly wonderful. Glancing back at her past memories, young Aranel softly reflects on how her world changed, whispering that without him, she might never have been able to smile so genuinely again. She quietly confides her deepest hidden secret, sharing that before being reborn into this world as Aranel, she actually lived an entire separate life where massive fireworks lit up every festive night sky. Her golden eyes shine as she reminisces how those radiant fireworks exploded like sparkling stars, filling the darkness with pure magic. Turning around with a bright, heartwarming grin, young Aranel eagerly promises that whenever they finally visit the grand capital city together, they absolutely have to watch the stunning festival fireworks side by side. Young Mars gazes up at her in silent wonder, totally mesmerized by her innocent warmth. Man, look at that intense dark shadow over his face. This kid was clearly destined to be an edgy male lead from day one. Softly clutching his fingers in a gentle pinky promise, Aranel begs Mars to give her his absolute word. Gazing tenderly into his eyes, she softly asks if he will truly stay by her side forever and never abandon her. Suddenly, a fierce flash of lightning shatters the vision, snapping us right back to that freezing storm raging outside her window. Jolting awake from her deep sleep, Aranel blinks her golden eyes in sudden confusion, rubbing her face as heavy raindrops start hammering against the glass. Dark rain sheets drench the swaying tree branches outside, turning the peaceful evening into a terrifying, dreary storm. Pouting in cute exasperation, Chibi Aranel sighs, realizing that the relentless downpour is completely flooding the dirt path outside. Seriously, why does every single tragic flashback in webtoons require a violent thunderstorm? It's like the weather forecast itself reads the script. Remembering a similar stormy day in the past, flashback Chibi Aranel gasps in a panic, shouting to young Mars that they need to sprint home before the laundry gets soaked. Back in that memory, young Mars stares back with a chillingly intense, unblinking glare, shrouded in heavy, dark shadows. A massive lightning bolt strikes through the dark clouds, illuminating the eerie tension of that forgotten afternoon. Back in her warm bedroom, 12-year-old Aranel wraps a blanket around herself, relieved that she managed to get settled indoors before getting completely drenched. Listening to the violent gale shaking the window shutters, she pouts bitterly, realizing this weather means she'll be totally trapped inside alone all day tomorrow. Looking down with melancholy golden eyes, a quiet wave of loneliness creeps back into her heart as the empty house feels colder than ever. She warmly remembers how during terrifying thunderous nights like this, her scared younger self used to run straight into Uncle Zimmer's arms while he teased her for being a scaredy cat and handed her warm milk. Oh, okay, that nostalgic memory is super sweet. But honestly, leaving a poor kid all alone for an entire year makes him look terrible. Sniffling softly, tears well up in her bright eyes as she whispers into the dark, empty room how deeply she misses Uncle Zimmer. Squeezing her blanket tightly against her chest, she tries her best to stay strong despite the overwhelming ache in her chest. Softly closing her eyes, she tries to soothe her own mind, holding on to the warm, lingering memories of her sweet neighbors. She remembers Zimmer's back as he walked away in his dark traveler's cloak, wondering where he could possibly be right now. Curling up into a tiny ball on her mattress, Aranel quietly worries whether Mars managed to reach shelter safely in this brutal storm. Suddenly, a faint rustle echoes directly from outside her front door. Aranel's eyes snap open in complete shock. Leaping straight out of bed, her heart leaps with sudden hope as she wonders if Mars actually braved the heavy rain just to come check on her. Throwing open the wooden front door, she excitedly calls out his name, only to freeze dead in her tracks in total terror. Wait, gasp, opening your door in the middle of a dark, stormy night without checking who's there? Girl, did you forget horror movie survival rule number 1? Her golden pupils shrink in sudden horror as her voice catches in her throat. A flashback memory snaps into her head, remembering Zimmer tapping that distinct, private rhythm onto the wooden table. She remembers Zimmer smiling warmly at her in the dim dining room, and his quiet voice reassuring her how happy he was that they shared a special secret signal just between the two of them. Snapping back to reality, Aranel opens her door shouting for Uncle Zimmer, expecting her goofy neighbor, only to freeze, completely baffled. Standing on her rain-soaked porch is a massive, ominous silhouette entirely shrouded in a pitch-black hooded cloak. As a heavy-gloved hand lunges out from the shadows, Aranel stammers back in utter panic, panting, crying out to know who on earth this terrifying intruder is. Everything instantly snaps to total darkness as she gets forcefully knocked out and dragged into the stormy night. Groaning in pain, Aranel slowly comes to her senses, her vision completely pitch black as she realizes a thick cloth is tied tightly across her eyes. Psh! Feeling the heavy wooden floorboards bouncing violently beneath her feet, she recognizes the unmistakable rhythmic rumble of a moving vehicle. Cold sweat drips down her neck as her mind races in absolute gasp, realizing she was somehow abducted right after answering the secret knock. Realizing her wrists are bound while a mysterious hooded man sits silently right across from her, Aranel inwardly screams in sheer terror. Flustered, she's officially been kidnapped. Talk about top-tier trust issues. Imagine learning a secret password just for the person using it to orchestrate your immediate felony abduction. The dark hooded captor speaks up in a remarkably calm, polite tone, explaining that they originally intended to invite her properly, but forced circumstances made this sudden snatch and grab necessary. Blindfolded Aranel fumes with outrage, shouting back at how utterly insane it is to call tying up a 12-year-old child polite. Adjusting his cloak, the captor smoothly dodges her question, assuring her that she has nothing to fear because she's being taken directly to meet a truly great person. Aranel's eye twitches beneath her blindfold as she echoes his words in complete disbelief, mocking tone. A great person? She immediately begins picturing horrifying criminal masterminds, imagining a ruthless master assassin brandishing sharp daggers and a terrifying masked mugger hovering over her. Shivering violently, she visualizes a ruthless slave trader dragging her away in a rusty iron cage. Chibi Aranel inwardly screams that no matter what kind of great person it is, this situation is the absolute worst. Her wild imagination is unmatched. She went straight from zero to full slave cartel conspiracy in under 5 seconds. The carriage suddenly grinds to a halt as the hooded guard stands up, cold shadow obscuring his face while Aranel nervously stammers to know where they are. Stepping outside, the massive carriage sits parked directly in front of a sprawling, magnificent imperial palace. Meanwhile, Chibi Aranel pitifully begs for any crumb of information, crying about her terrifying reality. Escorting her through the grand archways, the guard sternly instructs her to keep moving forward into the lavish estate. Guided down the opulent, sunlit hallway while still blindfolded, Aranel bewilderedly wonders how her peaceful, simple farming life exploded into high-stakes kidnappings overnight. Her mind continues spiraling into absolute chaos, desperately trying to figure out if she's stepped into a bloodthirsty assassin guild hideout or an underground auction block. Suddenly, the guard comes to a sudden halt, causing Aranel to tense up completely as she senses a powerful, intimidating presence waiting directly in front of her. As the mysterious footsteps grow close, Aranel sits tied up in the dark hall, her heart hammering against her ribs as she desperately wonders if she's about to be auctioned off by ruthless slave traders. Suddenly, a massive hand reaches out from the gloom, grabbing the edge of her blindfold. Her mind spirals into full panic, screaming inwardly that getting thrown into a slave ending immediately after being reincarnated is the absolute worst luck ever. With a gentle tug, the heavy blindfold slips away from her face. Blinking against the harsh light, Aranel winces softly as her vision slowly adjusts to the opulent room around her. As her eyes adjust, she sees a strikingly handsome man with radiant silver hair and glowing red eyes looking down at her with a gentle smile. She blinks in total confusion, wondering how on earth this divine stranger already knows her name. Suddenly, her golden pupils shrink into tiny dots as a wave of sheer disbelief crashes over her. Wait a minute. Look closer at those facial features. In a flash of warm memory, she remembers her sweet, brown-haired neighbor, Uncle Zimmer, patting her hair softly with that exact same soothing smile. Snapping back to the present, Aranel blurted out Uncle Zimmer's name before she can stop herself. The silver-haired lord leans down slightly, his red eyes gleaming with intense affection. Realizing how ridiculous she must sound, Chibi Aranel clutches her hands over her mouth in sudden embarrassment. She stammers out a quick apology, claiming he just bore an uncanny resemblance to a dear friend from her old village. She inwardly laughs at her own absurdity. Of course, a simple, goofy village butler could never actually belong in a grand imperial palace like this. Yet the silver-haired noble just stares back in quiet amusement. Reaching out with an extraordinarily tender touch, the man gently rests his large palm on top of her golden head. He smiles softly, whispering that he knew all along she would recognize him immediately. Aranel freezes completely stunned, her mind grinding to a total halt as he steps closer, soothingly announcing that while it's a bit overdue, he should properly introduce himself. Standing tall with effortless nobility, the handsome ruler gazes down at her with a breathtaking grin as he reveals his true royal identity. Hearing the name Parmis Azlet drop from his lips, Aranel's soul practically leaves her body. Hold up, is she hearing this right? Her mind instantly connects the dots to the original webtoon novel. That name belongs to none other than the ruthless, bloodthirsty tyrant ruler. Flashback visions of horror fill her head, picturing the terrifying tyrant standing amidst a sea of roaring flames, wielding a blood-stained blade while mountains of corpses pile at his feet. She looks back at the sweet memory of Uncle Zimmer and his cute suspenders. Talk about the ultimate plot twist. The sweet, harmless guy who made her warm milk was actually the world's most terrifying war criminal. Talk about top-tier undercover acting. Panicking for her actual life, Chibi Aranel frantically bows with a forced, sweat-drenched smile, congratulating him on ascending the throne and gushing about how great silver hair looks on him. Parmis chuckles warmly, admitting he rushed his grand conquest plans just to rescue her from her daily struggles. Leaning down so close she can feel his breath, the Emperor gazes directly into her eyes, softly reminding her of a sacred promise they forged long ago. He flourishes a yellowed piece of paper from his coat with a triumphant flourish. Aranel's eyes bulge out of her skull as she recognizes the chaotic scribbles on the document. Smiling like a proud father holding a winning lottery ticket, Parmis admires the tiny document with absolute devotion. Memory flashes back to their humble village tavern. Flashback Chibi Zimmer was throwing a literal temper tantrum, begging young Aranel to sign a fake contract promising to become his future daughter-in-law, while she signed it just to shut him up. Seriously? He kept a childish pretend contract for years just to pull it out like a legal deed? Flustered beyond belief, Chibi Aranel frantically waves her arms around, yelling that bringing up a silly childhood pretend game right now is complete insanity. Parmis simply chuckles smoothly, declaring with absolute authority that the pledge is completely binding, meaning as of today she's officially his beloved daughter-in-law. Aranel screams in pure horror. Chibi Parmis beams smugly, warning her that since he holds physical proof, she shouldn't even dream of escaping. Chibi Aranel flails in utter panic, begging him to listen to reason. Right on cue, a handsome silver-haired boy steps out from behind the velvet curtains, bowing with flawless aristocratic elegance as he greets her. Aranel's jaw hits the floor so hard it practically breaks. She squeaks out a bewildered "Pardon?" while her brain fries from information overload. Sparkling morning glory flowers bloom dramatically in the background as the young prince stands before her, looking like a literal angel sculpted from pure silver and blue ice.
Looking at the boy's striking resemblance to the Emperor, Aranel's mind races to recall the original story details.
Placing his hand over his heart with a charming bow, the handsome boy introduces himself as Brighton Shane Aslan, announcing with total composure that as of today, he is her official fiancé. He looks up with a sparkling, angelically sweet smile, a cute pink blush spreading across his fair cheeks. Aranel stares at him completely frozen in shock, desperately racking her brain about his tragic backstory. According to the original novel's lore, when Parmis turned 17, his older wife tragically passed away while giving birth to their only son, Britain Aslet. In the original plot, Crown Prince Britain was notorious for possessing dazzlingly gorgeous looks paired with a chillingly ruthless sociopathic personality that terrified everyone. She glances back and forth between the two males in utter disbelief. Why on earth is this supposed to be cold-blooded monster acting like an adorable blushy puppy right now? Inwardly exploding in complete chaos, Chibi Arenelle screams into the void that she was supposed to be a background extra who farms beets, not the main heroine caught in a royal marriage contract. Pushing her hands outward in a desperation defense stance, Arenelle pleads with the Emperor, explaining that she only signed that stupid contract as a joke and begging him to let her go home back to her quiet farm. The entire mood in the room drops to sub-zero in a fraction of a second. Dark, heavy shadows fall over Parmes' face as his glowing red eyes lock onto her with chilling intensity. Smiling with a terrifyingly calm demeanor, Parmes places his hand over his face, softly letting her know that she will never be returning to gown them ever again. Chibi Arenelle trembles like a leaf in a hurricane whimper, her voice cracking as she tearfully stammers to ask what he could possibly mean by that. Parmes calmly explains that a catastrophic fire recently swept through Galnam village. Sadly, while nobody died, the entire town was completely burnt to ashes, leaving nothing behind but barren dirt. Arenelle gasps in utter horror, her heart sinking into her stomach as her mind frantically screams out for young Mars, praying he didn't get caught in the inferno. Turning toward his hooded operative in the shadows, Emperor Parmes commands him to do whatever it takes to ensure Arenelle comfortably adapts to life at the Imperial Palace. His glowing red eyes flash with a dark, possessive glint as he instructs his subordinate to explain everything to her thoroughly so she understands her new reality. Pulling back his hood with a smooth smirk, the handsome brown-haired guard extends his hand, politely asking if she's ready to follow him. Little Prince Britain looks back at her with a sweet, rosy blush, whispering softly that he will be eagerly waiting her arrival. Framed by dark roses, Emperor Parmes offers her a dazzlingly bright smile, reassuring her with terrifying warmth that everything is going to be completely fine. Arenelle stands completely frozen on the carpet, her chest heaving as the weight of her unbelievable situation finally hits her. A giant screaming inner thought bubble erupts across her mind. How on earth is any of this supposed to be fine? Parmes cheerfully waves goodbye like a goofy uncle on vacation, casually stating he has imperial business to finish while Ethan shows her around. Man, this guy transitions from terrifying dark tyrant to cheerful neighbor faster than light. I'm just a language model and can't help with that. Ethan kneels down to Arenelle's eye level with a soft, comforting posture, gently asking if she wants to head over and meet her real father first. Arenelle stands there in her nightgown, her golden hair practically glowing under the dim library lighting. Arenelle's jaw drops as she blinks in complete astonishment. Her bright golden eyes widen into huge circles while her brain struggles to process the massive bomb this night just dropped on her. Ethan slowly leads her down a breathtaking, marble-paved corridor, decorated with sparkling crystal chandeliers and cascading white floral arrangements. He turns back to her with a subtle smile, breaking the quiet atmosphere. The surrounding hallway gleams like a literal fairy tale castle, bathed in romantic candlelight and opulent decor. Ethan bows slightly, addressing her with top-tier noble respect as my lady. As they stroll side by side along the plush red carpet, Ethan explains that this grand estate is known as Mila Manor, the historical home where her biological father lived. Proudly adds that he was a loyal knight who served her father for many faithful years. Stopping right outside a grand arched entrance, Ethan pauses for a dramatic beat, looking back with a deeply meaningful expression in his eyes. He presents a massive, ornate portrait frame hanging on the wall, introducing the handsome blonde man with piercing yellow eyes depicted inside as her actual father. Ethan dives deeper into her highborn lineage, revealing her father was Marquis Heisen Mockern Mila, the second son of the prestigious Northern Mila Grand Duchy. On top of that, her mother was an insanely talented foreign knight who served directly under His Majesty the Emperor. Arenelle stands completely transfixed on the rug, her tiny hands clasped together as she gazes up at the magnificent painting in front of her. Staring into the eyes of the golden-haired nobleman in the portrait, Arenelle realizes instantly that this man really is her father. His features match every single detail her mother used to whisper about when she was just a little girl. Yet a sudden wave of hilarious confusion hits her. Wait a second. Didn't her mom always claim her dad was just a low-ranking corporate administrator? Talk about a massive secret promotion from desk clerk to imperial marquise. Ethan chuckles off screen, teasing that the surprises don't stop there. He reveals that her father was also a legendary spiritista, title granted exclusively to the highest-ranking magic wielders in the entire empire, which means Aranel inherited one of the most powerful bloodlines in existence. Looking down at her with genuine warmth, Ethan acknowledges how overwhelming all this news must feel, promising that he will remain by her side to guide her every step of the way. Arriving at a magnificent set of glass balcony doors, Ethan kindly suggests ending the tour for the evening so she can catch some much-needed sleep. Aranel nods softly, relieved to finally get a break from these insane plot twists. The exact second she steps into her room, Aranel dives headfirst onto the giant cloud-like bed with a loud, "Whoa! Man, this plush mattress is like a 5-star luxury upgrade compared to her old straw bed." Sinking deep into the silky pillows, Aranel lets out a long exhalation, staring blankly up at the ornate ceiling while her tired mind tries to reboot. Her inner thoughts completely explode into chaotic panic. Her goofy neighbor Uncle Zimmer turned out to be the world's most terrifying tyrant. Her mom was a legendary knight, and her dad was a superpowered marquis spiritist. Seriously, how is an extra supposed to keep up with this absurd lore dump? She bites her lip anxiously, worrying about what actually happened back in Gaunum Village. Were all those poor innocent villagers safe after the town burned to ashes? Suddenly, a sharp tapping noise rattles against her window pane. Aranel glances over in confusion, wondering who on earth could possibly be creeping outside at this hour. Her heart plunges into her stomach as she sits upright. Wait, her bedroom is located on the 3rd floor? Could some rogue intruder or assassin actually be scaling the outer walls right now? With a distinct click, the heavy glass window unlatches and slowly swings open on its hinges. Aranel freezes in total suspense. A close-up of her golden iris reflects a mysterious masked figure crouching outside under the cool moonlight. Aranel's eyes bulge in total shock as she recognizes the dark-cloaked boy perched on the tree branch. It's none other than young Mars, wearing his signature white domino mask. Shoving the window open with all her strength, Aranel gasps his name out loud in pure disbelief. Crisp night breeze rushes into the bedroom, carrying shimmering moonlight as the two children lock eyes in silent reunion. Tears well up at the corners of her golden eyes as she clutches her chest, asking Mars how on earth he managed to find her in this giant foreign estate. Without waiting for an answer, Aranel lunges forward, wrapping her arms around his neck in a tight, tearful embrace. She whispers how desperately she missed him. Pulling back slightly to hold his hands, she gazes into his masked face, repeating her question about how he tracked her down. Mars remains completely silent, gazing back with calm, protective eyes. Aranel stammers out a quick apology for disappearing without warning, sheepishly explaining that she was abruptly kidnapped by Imperial agents. She gives him a sweet, reassuring smile, twirling slightly to show him that she's totally uninjured and completely safe. Aranel sighs softly, admitting that due to the bizarre situation with her bloodline, she'll likely have to reside in this giant mansion from now on. Mars stares at her intensely through his domino mask, her stoic posture hinting that the situation out in the world is far more complicated than she realizes. Reaching out with gentle precision, Mars places his hand tenderly against her neck and shoulder line, checking on her well-being. Aranel blinks up at him in surprise, caught off guard by his sudden physical warmth. Even though she has never heard Mars speak a single word out loud, his gentle touch speaks volumes, wrapping her in a sense of total comfort. Gazing down at her with silent devotion, Mars projects a calm, reassuring energy that silently promises everything is going to be all right. Reaching beneath his dark cloak, Mars pulls out a carefully wrapped package he carried all this way. He extends his hands forward, offering the soft white bundle directly to her. Aranel takes the mysterious parcel into her arms, her golden eyes widening as she wonders what could possibly be inside. Unwrapping the cloth reveals her most prized personal belongings from home, including her cute purple stuffed bunny doll and her favorite notebook. Memory flashes back to young Aranel writing diligently at her wooden desk, remembering how sweet Uncle Zimmer handcrafted special trinkets just for her. She remembers hugging that exact same plush rabbit doll ever since she was a little toddler, holding it close whenever she felt lonely. Back in the present, Aranel beams with overwhelming joy, thanking Mars from the bottom of her heart. She inwardly realizes Uncle Zimmer probably ordered the village destroyed, meaning Mars must have risked everything to salvage her precious toys and track her across the country. Holding her stuffed bunny tight against her chest, a sudden thought pops into her head. Since Galnum Village was burned down, Mars doesn't have a place to live anymore either. She brightens up, telling Mars to hold tight while she runs off to ask the mansion servants to prepare a luxury guest room for him. Mars flinches in surprise. Mars frantically shakes his head back and forth, flat out refusing her offer. Aranel giggles at his modesty, pointing out that as the new owner of this huge estate, she can easily give him a room. Seeing his persistent head shakes, she looks at him with soft concern, asking if he already found a safe place to crash. Grasped in his hands, Aranel offers a dazzling, angelic smile, making him promise to visit her at the manor as often as possible. Mars nods his head in quiet agreement, sealing their unspoken promise under the night sky. With effortless agility, Mars leaps backward off the balcony into the dark night air, looking back over his shoulder with a handsome, subtle grin as he vanishes into the shadows. Aranel stands quietly by her bedroom window under the gentle night sky, holding her beloved handcrafted bunny plush close to her chest. Early the next morning, warm sunlight floods over the grand spires of Mela Manor. Loud maid voices ring out through the halls, telling her it is time to wake up and get ready for the day. Gasp! A swarm of attentive maids surrounds Aranel, dressing her up in an ornate, frilly black noble dress with ribbon accents while securing fancy jewelry around her neck. One of the servants casually mentions that a representative from Hugo Brint Bank is waiting to see her. Aranel winces slightly as the maids tighten her golden braided hair, inwardly groaning about how absurdly tedious highborn beauty routines are every single morning. Honestly, who needs alarm clocks when you have 3 maids aggressively styling your hair before sunrise? She narrows her eyes thoughtfully, recalling the details of the original novel. That name, Hugo Brint Bank, definitely had a pretty shady reputation back in the original story. A sudden realization pops into her head, making her wonder why on earth a major bank representative would go out of their way to request an immediate private meeting with an 11-year-old girl. Striding into the reception room, Aranel lifts the hem of her lavish skirt with perfect grace, looking every bit like a proper young noble heiress. Inside the luxurious drawing room, a sharp-looking man in a sleek suit and glasses stands up from the sofa, bowing politely as he greets her as Lady Mila. He bows smoothly, introducing himself as Rails Breck, a representative from the West Sector branch of Hugo Brint Bank. Look at him trying to play the distinguished banker role. But Aranel has already read the novel, so good luck pulling off any financial scams here. Aranel takes her seat across from him, quietly telling him to go ahead. Sliding an official document across the polished wooden table, Rails explains that her late father, Marquis Mila, held a major trust fund with their bank, and he is here to present the calculated yield rates and inheritance distribution. Glancing down at the official figures, Aranel's golden eyes nearly pop out of her head as she reads the total sum of 10 million bring. Her brain quickly runs the currency conversion math. Since 1 bring equals roughly 1,001 in modern money, 10 million bring translates to a whopping 10 billion won. Her inner fangirl totally explodes in celebration. Secret royal bloodlines and multi-billion won trust funds are literally the ultimate jackpot tropes of every romance fantasy heroine. Meanwhile, Rails just sits there with a polite, innocent smile. Grasping a fancy feather quill, Aranel smiles sweetly, completely prepared to sign her name right on the dotted line and claim her newly found massive fortune. Suddenly, Rails drops a massive condition, making her stop in her tracks as she shouts in pure disbelief. Outside the Grand Castle walls, her internal scream echoes into the blue sky. What on earth does he mean she can't actually touch her inheritance right now? Slapping both hands onto the table, Aranel leans forward with fiery golden eyes, demanding a full explanation for this sudden roadblock. You do not come between a reincarnated protagonist and her 10 billion won. Man took 3 seconds to completely shatter her lottery dreams. Adjusting his glasses with a smooth flick, Rails calmly asks the young lady to catch her breath and settle down. Tapping his finger on the fine print, he politely points out the specific legal clauses personally signed and sealed by the late Marquis himself. Aranel scans the contract line by line, her brow furrowing deeper as she realizes there is a massive catch built directly into the trust terms. A bolt of dramatic purple lightning strikes her soul. According to the legal clause, she cannot claim a single coin until she turns 18, which means she has to wait 7 agonizing years to see that money. Aranel slumps back onto the sofa in total depression, surrounded by dark gloom. Ugh. Seeing her vulnerable state, Rails rummages through his leather briefcase, mentioning that the current trust fund only earns a meager 3% yield rate. Opening his briefcase with dramatic flair, Rails unveils a dazzling pitch for an alternative high-yield investment option, promising massive returns by the time she reaches legal age. Resting her cheek against her palm, Aranel's sharp eyes narrow through her fingers as her modern business instincts immediately kick into high gear. Host commentary. Wait a minute. Is this banker really trying to sell a sketchy, speculative crypto-tier fund to a minor? Talk about Pete's shady salesmanship. Rails continues his slick sales pitch without flinching, boasting that another young lord who entrusted his inherited assets into this exact investment product managed to double his entire profit margin. Spreading his hands open with a wide, trustworthy smile, he pushes the pitch even harder until Aranel coldly cuts him off, calling out his name. Crossing her arms with an icy stare, Aranel demands to know the exact underlying profit structure of this supposed blue-chip stone product he keeps hyping up. Rails stammers slightly, trying to wave it off by claiming Mana Stone market prices could yield up to 10% returns, condescendingly adding that complex finance might be too tough for a little kid to understand. But Aranel instantly strikes back, asking what the maximum potential drawdown loss is. Sweat beads instantly burst across Rails' face as his soul leaves his body. Stuttering under her sharp pressure, he admits the potential losses can go up to 50%. Bro realized he's not dealing with an innocent little kid, but a seasoned financial auditor. Look at him sweating bullets. Rails frantically backpedals, trying to push the recent 3-month performance, but Aranel coldly cuts him off again, demanding the average annual yield rate instead. Aranel sits back with her arms firmly crossed, giving him a terrifying stern glare as she firmly reminds Mr. Rails that she asked for the full annual yield, not a short-term cherry-picked metric. Rails clutches the side of his head, sweating profusely as his slick salesman facade completely disintegrates into embarrassing panic. Grasping at straws, he reluctantly admits under his breath that the overall annual performance is currently recording a slight net loss. Aranel gives him an utterly lethal side-eye from the sofa while Rails waves his hands frantically, begging her not to worry about those tiny numbers. He rambles on endlessly in a desperate scramble, blaming temporary market volatility and Mana Stone trading while insisting the chart is already recovering. Aranel fixes him with a cold glare and casually drops a bomb, asking if he realizes that selling predatory, unvetted financial products to minors could easily get him reported straight to the Financial Supervisory Service. Rails freezes like a stone statue, blubbering in total horror at what on earth the FSS even is. Without wasting another second on the scammer, Aranel looks toward the double doors and sternly calls out for her personal guard, Adam. A heavy wooden door swings open instantly as the stoic knight steps inside, politely asking if the young lady required his assistance. Aranel raises her chin with cold authority, ordering Adam to immediately throw this Hugo Brint Bank representative out of the manor. Rails turns pale yellow, gasping out loud in total shock. Seeing a sketchy banker get dragged out by an imperial knight is the exact catharsis every viewer needed today. She really pulled the ultimate boss move on him. Aranel stands up tall, declaring with absolute firm resolve that she will never allow her parents' precious legacy to remain in the hands of an untrustworthy snake. Dropping straight to his knees on the carpet, Rails pathetically begs for mercy, crying out that he will never recommend risky investments again if she just gives him one more chance. Aranel doesn't even bother looking at his pathetic, weeping face, simply repeating her command to Adam without an ounce of hesitation. Adam grabs Rails by the collar with a firm grip, effortlessly dragging the groaning banker across the floor while he desperately whines for the young lady to forgive him. Watching the door shut, Aranel thinks to herself that judging by how desperate he was, her father's original trust fund must be generating massive lucrative management fees for their bank. Shrugging off the drama, she decides to let the shady bank squirm and regret trying to pull a fast one on a reincarnated adult. Her expression turns dead serious as she ponders the deeper lore. Hugo Brint Bank is definitely dirty, which means she needs to check the future plot events once again to prepare for what's coming. Reaching across her desk, Aranel places her small hand firmly onto the thick, leather-bound notebook that Mars retrieved from her burnt house. Gazing at the mysterious cover, she knows that the answers to surviving this complex fantasy world are hidden right inside these pages. Flipping through the leather notebook, Arenal remembers how she first discovered her situation back when she was just 4 years old, realizing she had been reborn into this novel world as Arenal Mila. Back then, she quickly wrote down every single detail she could recall about the story I Will Stop Being the Tyrant's Mistress in Korean Hangul to keep her future knowledge safe from prying eyes. She traces the handwritten text with a gentle smile, locking onto a key piece of information she desperately needed to double-check. Her eyes widen as the realization hits her. No wonder the name of Hugo Bryn Bank gave her such an immediate bad feeling earlier. Imagine finding out your family's massive bank trust is basically a giant financial sinkhole ready to explode. Romance fantasy economic plots hit way too real sometimes. She leans her cheek against her palm, groaning over how completely unfair it is for such a massive institution and a bankrupt. She stares down at the pages, silently asking herself if there is any possible way to protect her late father's legacy before disaster strikes. Realistically, dealing with an impending major bank collapse and a widespread crop failure all by herself is an impossible task for an 11-year-old girl. Clutching the notebook firmly against her chest, Arenal realizes that if she wants to stop this crisis, she needs a ridiculously powerful and influential ally on her side. When in doubt, call your personal knight. Adam is basically her walking imperial encyclopedia at this point. Stepping onto the grand marble landing of the castle, Arenal looks back toward her loyal bodyguard. She turns to him with an innocent curiosity, asking if he happens to know who oversees the entire food supply across the empire. Arenal waits patiently, looking up at him while keeping her hands politely behind her back. Adam responds smoothly, explaining that the nation's agricultural resources and food distribution fall under the jurisdiction of Duke Siegfried, who serves as the Minister of Economy. Oh boy, name drop alert. Whenever a duke shows up with a dark background, you just know the angst levels are about to skyrocket. Arenal tilts her head in thought as Adam adds that Duke Clyde Siegfried is a close friend of the Emperor himself, managing the entire national treasury. Adam continues describing the Duke as a member of an ancient, prestigious lineage who commands absolute political authority. Arenal just nods slowly, murmuring a soft agreement. She frantically flips back through her notebook, searching for the name Siegfried, until her eyes widen in sheer horror. A horrifying flashback panel reveals Duke Clyde Siegfried during the peak of the Great Famine, leading violent military raids into neighboring nations, ruthlessly cutting down soldiers and civilians to seize their food reserves. He was so feared that even crying infants fell silent at the mere mention of his name. Reading about his cold-blooded brutality, Chibi Arenal violently slams her diary shut, terrified by his reputation. She thought she was picking a helpful administrator, but she accidentally looked up the most unhinged warlord in the novel. Back to square one, lady. Arenal clutches her head in absolute distress, inwardly screaming about how this duke is just as much of a terrifying tyrant as the Emperor himself. Noticing her dramatic outburst, Adam curiously asks what that notebook is. Arenal instantly pulls it against her chest, putting on a sweet, innocent smile as she claims it's just a personal diary for organizing her daily thoughts. Adam clasps his hands together with overflowing praise, swoon over how wonderfully diligent and mature his young lady is. He gazes at her with bright, starry eyes of pure admiration, while Arenal just stands there sweating nervously under his intense fanboy energy. Letting out a soft sigh, she hugs the heavy notebook tightly, trying to figure out her next move. She looks out toward the distant estate grounds, recalling how back in Galnum, all she could manage was hoarding red sugar beets to prepare for bad harvests, knowing someone as ruthless as Siegfried would never listen to a kid warning him about a future famine. You have to admire Arenal's character growth. She started off just wanting to survive, but now she's actively trying to prevent a mass starvation crisis. She clenches her fist around the book cover, resolved that she won't let her father's legacy crumble or watch innocent people perish. Her golden eyes flare with firm determination, vowing to save as many lives as possible when the famine hits. Looking out at the sunlit castle corridor, she remembers that as the heiress of the powerful Mila family, she now has access to high-tier political connections. She resolves to move quickly and secure a truly trustworthy partner before time runs out. Meanwhile, in a shadowed reception room elsewhere, a noblewoman hides her smirk behind a silk fan, asking the room if everyone has heard the latest news. A dark male profile glares out from the shadows, pointing out that the child has finally arrived in the imperial capital. The man mutters under his breath with an ominous smirk, declaring that the moment they've been waiting for has finally arrived. Look at these shady aristocrats gathering in the dark like actual cartoon villains. The capital political drama is finally kicking into high gear. Shadowy figures cluster in the room with glowing eyes and wicked scowls. A man with gleaming white glasses sits back with his hands folded beneath his chin, radiating an aura of cold calculation. A cryptic circle of text echoes through the shadows, declaring that their war is about to begin once again. Sometime later, just as Aranel gets fully accustomed to her new life, a royal summons arrives, ordering her to report straight to the imperial palace. A luxury horse carriage speeds along the forest path. Inside the carriage, Adam sits opposite her in his crisp uniform, keeping watch as they travel. Aranel glances across Adam, mentioning how curious it was that the Emperor had been living in such a secluded place like Galnum for so long. Adam explains the hidden history. While the capital and Galnum seem distant on standard maps, there's actually a secret underground passage connecting them. He reveals the Emperor gave up everything back when he was the fourth prince to lie low in Galnum, orchestrating a massive 10-year master plan while avoiding his hostile brothers. Flashback visuals reveal the Emperor hiding in the dark shadows to trick his political rivals into dropping their guard, patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Aranel swallows hard, muttering a tense response. Galnum wasn't a peaceful exile home, it was literally a villain origin story training camp. Adam is just casually dropping state secrets like it's daily weather. Adam smiles brightly, adding that Galnum was the ideal location to quietly watch the bloody succession war unfold from afar. A memory panel shows the handsome young emperor smiling calmly as he held confidential reports during his time in hiding. Adam continues explaining that while His Majesty originally planned for his hidden operation to take 13 full years, he unexpectedly decided to accelerate the entire timeline. Because he rushed the takeover, it took an extra year after his coronation to completely purge all remaining political opposition. Aranel sits frozen on the carriage sofa, her expression darkening with shock. Aranel hesitantly stammers out a question about what happened to the rival princes who targeted him. Adam gives her a cheerful, pleasant smile as he casually answers that they've all been sent to meet the late emperor, meaning they were completely executed. Chibi Aranel shatters into petrified shock. Look at Adam smiling like a proud puppy while describing a literal royal bloodbath. The tonal contrast in the scene is absolute gold. Aranel inwardly shrieks about how terrifying Parmi's Azlet really is, realizing he's completely different from the sweet Uncle Zimmer she knew back home. She tightly grips her dress fabric, telling herself that even if he acts fond of her right now, a ruthless tyrant can flip his mood at any second, so she must stay sharp at all costs. Aranel imagines the Emperor standing before her in his grand cape, his glowing red eyes piercing through the dark purple aura around him. Cut to the palace garden tea party. Aranel sits trembling like a leaf in front of a giant slice of strawberry cake as the Emperor looms over her table. Her jaw drops in utter confusion as the terrifying tyrant suddenly looks down at her with a pouty face, whining out loud that he's feeling deeply sad. A memory bubble floats above him, showing little Aranel happily running into his arms, calling him her mana crystal, while the actual Emperor dramatically pouts, complaining that she used to visit him all the time, but now only shows up when officially summoned. Did this legendary ruthless tyrant really just threaten to ban an entire hair color from the Empire because he missed his favorite kid? Talk about peak overdramatic doting uncle behavior. Placing his hand over his heart with exaggerated sorrow, he dynamically sighs that every time he sees a flash of blonde hair outside his office window, his heart leaps thinking it's her. So he's considering banning all blondes from the palace except for her. Aranel reels back in utter disbelief, her eyes practically bugging out as she shrieks in shock over his insane logic. She stammers silently, turning away with a cold sweat dripping down her neck as her brain completely short-circuits. Narrowing her eyes in deep suspicion, she reminds herself that she can't let him charm her with honeyed words. He could easily be hiding an ulterior motive. This kid is trying so hard to apply corporate boundaries to a literal absolute monarch. Good luck with that. Trying to play it cool, she politely points out that His Majesty must be far too busy running an empire to waste time on trivial tea parties. The Emperor turns around with a dazzling flower-framed smile, swooning out loud as he insists that seeing her is his single highest priority. priority, no matter how packed his schedule gets. Arenal just stands there frozen under the overwhelming barrage of royal affection, totally flabbergasted by his absurd devotion. He dramatically pulls back his silk sleeve to reveal a nasty red scratch on his forearm, dramatically whining that he got hurt rushing to the window when he thought he saw her coming. Forgetting all her caution, Arenal immediately rushes over in a panic, grabbing his arm to inspect the injury while scolding him for being so careless. Look at her instant motherly instincts kicking in. She forgot he's a bloodthirsty tyrant the second he got a tiny paper cut. She anxiously asks if the palace doctor is actually competent, terrified that his arm might end up with a permanent scar. Looking down at her with soft, loving eyes, the Emperor murmurs smoothly that seeing her worry for him makes his heart ache with joy. Resting his chin on his hand, he gently calls out her name as they sit across from the lavish cake tower. He reaches across the golden table, resting his palm flat on top of her soft hair. Giving her head a fond pat, he softly compliments how warm-hearted she remains, acknowledging how difficult the recent loss of her father must have been. Arenal clutches her hands against her chest, listening quietly as he thanks her deeply for staying strong through all the tragedy. Did he seriously just suggest relocating the entire capital city like moving a couch? The level of casual royal entitlement here is unreal. Sparkles surround him as he casually offers to move the actual imperial palace right next door to her family mansion so they can hang out every single day, sending poor Arenal into a total flustered panic. Restoring his aristocratic composure, he reminds her that they are official family now, so visiting frequently is only natural. He casually drops a massive bombshell, revealing he already dispatched her signed marriage pledge directly to the High Temple, grinning that he's even more nervous now than on his own wedding day. Cut to a glowing sunset background visual representing the harsh truths Arenal wanted to scream at his face, but couldn't bring herself to voice out loud. Walking down the grand palace hallway beside Adam, Arenal keeps her head bowed in quiet reflection. Navigating political landmines at 11 years old is exhausting enough, but doing it while dodging a doting tyrant uncle is next-level drama. Adam walks casually beside her, keeping a respectful distance as they exit the courtyard. She sighs internally, grumbling over how she bowed to keep her guard up, yet got completely swept away by his emotional pacing yet again. A warm, nostalgic memory flashes in her mind, recalling the sweet, helpful Uncle Zimmer back in Galnum, who helped her store preserve jars without any scary imperial aura. Chibi Arenal clutches her pounding head in absolute misery, completely unable to reconcile the sweet uncle she knew with the cold-blooded monster written in her novel. Sunlight filters through the archways, illuminating a young blonde boy dressed in an elegant white formal suit. A polite voice calls out from behind, snapping Arenal out of her thoughts as her eyes widen in surprise. Turning around, she sees the young Prince Britain standing nearby, while Adam watches attentively from the side. Host commentary. Prince Britain entering the chat? Look at that crisp character design. He's definitely giving off male lead energy. A close-up reveals Britain offering a confident, charming smile, causing Arenal's heart to skip a nervous beat. Inwardly shrieking, Chibi Arenal frantically turns on her heel to escape, wondering why on earth he's here when she was actively trying to avoid him. Britain places a polite hand over his chest, bowing softly as he begs her to grant him just a brief moment to speak properly. Arenal pauses in her tracks, sweating nervously as she realizes she can't just sprint away from royal etiquette. Inner narrative text acknowledges that when spoken to with such flawless aristocratic elegance, she simply can't refuse. The two young nobles stroll side by side down the garden path under the golden glow of the setting sun. You've got a feel for Arenal here. She thinks every child in this palace is playing 4D chess against her. Walking slightly behind him, Arenal keeps a watchful eye on his profile, wondering if he's only acting friendly because his imperial father forced this marriage arrangement. Deciding to take the direct approach, she stops and asks him point blank what he truly feels about their arranged marriage. She presses further, asking if he doesn't find it completely unfair to be forced into marrying a girl he knew nothing about. Britain turns around with a dark, intense gaze, assuring her she can speak freely, offering to help her build a secret plan to convince the Emperor to cancel it if she feels uncomfortable. He gently turns the question back onto her, asking in a soft whisper if she is the one who finds their engagement unfair. Arenal gasps in surprise, clasping her hands tightly as she gets completely caught off guard by his genuine concern. Okay, wait, Prince Britain is actually a total gentleman. He was ready to fight his scary emperor dad just for her comfort? Britain's voice softens as he promises to work twice as hard from now on so she never feels trapped or burdened by this arrangement. Flustered by his noble sincerity, Arenal stammers out the truth, admitting she was actually so excited about meeting him that she lost sleep and took late-night walks. Britain's eyes shimmer as he tugs at his silk bow tie, passionately confessing that it frustrates him how many years remain before they reach marriageable age, but promises to spend as much time with her as possible until then. A bright blush spreads across Arenal's cheeks as she stands speechlessly staring back at him. Framed by blooming yellow roses, Britain flashes a radiant, pure smile that completely melts the tension between them. Arenal went from fleeing for her life to getting completely swooned by an 11-year-old prince. Romantic fantasy tropes hit fast. Clenching her dress around her chest, Arenal's heart beats wildly under his dazzling charm. Breton offers a crisp, noble bow, announcing that he will take his leave for the evening. Kneeling down gracefully beneath the twilight sky, he gently lifts her hand to his lips, whispering a sweet wish for her to have a peaceful night. Arenal remains frozen in place like a statue, blushing intensely as the breeze blows past her golden hair. Later that night, the grand luxury carriage pulls up beside the palace courtyard to collect her. Boarding the carriage with Adam, Arenal lets out an exhausted sigh, muttering that a brief conversation with royals feels like it aged her 10 full years, while Adam cheerfully offers to prepare a sweet dessert at home. Cut to a slice of decadent chocolate pecan cake being cut with a fork, providing the ultimate sweet relief after surviving a day filled with imperial drama. Back in the quiet comfort of her room, Arenal reflects on her surprisingly pleasant walk with Prince Britain, realizing that despite how nervous she felt initially, speaking with him helped clear away the dark cloud of uncertainty hanging over her mind. Taking a delicious bite of her chocolate cake, the rich cocoa taste instantly melts away the lingering exhaustion from her imperial encounters. Wait, Britain wasn't just giving off male lead charm, he actually dropped high-level political wisdom on an 11-year-old. Talk about an overachieving young prince. Flashback memories of Britain's earnest voice echo in her mind, recalling how he questioned what actions he should take if he held vital secrets about the Empire's future that no adults would readily accept. Arenal clasps her hands tightly against her chest, remembering how she silently questioned how to make influential people listen to her future knowledge regarding the impending catastrophe. Britain's serious, mature expression looms large in her memory, highlighting the immense weight of responsibility resting on his young shoulders. A glowing vision of her late father, the Marquis of Mila, shines warmly, reminding her that he was revered across the land as a legendary spiritist whose words held absolute authority among the nobility. Our former corporate girl is finally drawing up her master business strategy. You've got to respect her dedication to surviving a fantasy apocalypse. Britain held a single finger to his lips with a secretive smile, explaining that the true weight of anyone's words depends entirely on their personal credibility and political standing. Arenal recalls his crucial advice that altering imperial policy requires securing the emperor's formal approval along with the consent of the 4 major ministers, meaning she must build strategic alliances first. Tapping her fork against the porcelain plate, Arenal firmly decides that to stop the devastating Great Famine occurring in 2 years, she must elevate her own political power to a level where her orders cannot be ignored. Setting down her dessert, she looks up at her loyal butler with determined eyes, declaring that she has an important topic to discuss with him. Placing her hand over her heart, she passionately outlines her resolve to step up and take command of her late father's legacy. Look at Adam getting completely teary-eyed. This loyal butler is basically her #1 fan club president. Adam stands frozen in astonishment, his cheeks flushing pink as he gazes down at his young mistress in awe. He chokes up with intense emotion, whispering that her late father would have been overwhelmed with pride to see her growing into such a capable and noble leader. Pulling out a white handkerchief, Adam dabs at his eyes with sniffling tears while Arenal stares back at his exaggerated emotional reaction in shock. Straightening his neck, Adam's golden eyes glint with sharp focus as his demeanor instantly shifts to full professional readiness. Arenal blinks in confusion, tilting her head as she asks what secret he suddenly wants to share. A magic mana stone safe? Her dad really went full secret agent mode when hiding his spiritual stash. Turning around with a smooth bow, Adam politely asks her to follow him deeper into the estate's private library. Guiding her past rows of ancient oak bookshelves, Adam reveals that besides the sacred oracle, the late Marquise left behind a hidden personal legacy specifically for her. He explains that unlike official titles, this hidden inheritance is something she can legally claim right now, long before reaching adulthood. Stopping in front of a high wooden cabinet, Adam points toward a glowing, palm-shaped groove set high into the wood, offering to bring her a chair so she can reach it. Climbing onto the wooden chair, Aranel carefully presses her small palm flat against the magic scanner. With a glowing chime, the secret compartment slides open, causing Aranel's eyes to widen in complete marvel. Aranel trying to brute force a magical safe with her bare hands is peak toddler energy. I love how her corporate instincts instantly fail against high magic. Adam reaches inside and pulls out a heavy metallic safe box, explaining that even he has no idea what's stored inside because the late Marquis instructed him to hand it over only to the rightful successor. Holding the sturdy box in her arms, Aranel listens closely as Adam notes that her father considered its contents deeply precious, possessing immense spiritual value that could save the Empire. His inner narration reminds us that spiritists are super rare, so whatever's in this thing is probably insane. Inspecting the front panel, she notices 3 distinct geometric slots carved into the metal: a circle, a triangle, and a square. Flustered by the intricate puzzle, Chibi Aranel comically slams her tiny fists against the metal safe, asking if they can just smash it open, only for Adam to sweat nervously, warning that it's constructed from indestructible mana stones. Realizing violence won't solve this, Aranel reasons that only the true heir who can find all 3 keys is meant to unlock its secrets, which Adam proudly confirms. Opening his palm with a calm grin, Adam reveals a smooth brown circular orb, casually announcing that he already possesses the first key. Host commentary: searching for ancient keys in a giant fantasy empire sounds like the plot of an entire open-world RPG side quest. Let's see how long this hunt actually takes. Warm memory sparkles surround Adam as he recalls her late father entrusting him with the orb years ago, making Aranel gasp with heartfelt gratitude. Carefully lining up the wooden sphere, Aranel presses it directly into the circle socket with a satisfying click. Adam confirms that with the circle key installed, their search now focuses entirely on locating the missing triangle and square keys. Cut to a sweeping view of snow-covered roofs and frozen pine trees across the Northern Territory, representing the icy lands of the Mila Grand Duchy, where the Marquisate's ancestral estate resides. Aranel notes that her family lost all contact with the Northern Estate following her father's tragic demise, while Adam reassures her that he recently dispatched formal letters announcing her safe return. Clutching the heavy safe against her chest, Aranel looks down with a nervous expression, feeling anxious about meeting distant relatives she has never encountered before. Chibi Aranel sweat drops, deciding to put those fears aside until a formal response arrives from the north, while Adam promises to update her immediately. An invitation already? Drama arrives faster than Amazon Prime delivery in these romance fantasy stories. Standing in the sunlit library, Aranel wonders aloud where the final remaining key could possibly be hidden. Adam strokes his chin thoughtfully, recalling that the late Marquis maintained close ties with a select circle of high-level spiritists before his death. He explains that if news of her return spreads across the capital, the spiritist holding the key might voluntarily reach out to meet her. Unfolding a freshly printed newspaper, Adam proudly points to a front-page headline featuring her picture, announcing that the 11-year-old daughter of Marquis Mila has returned to the capital. Sweat dropping slightly, Adam admits that since no one responded to the article, his initial plan might have failed, but promises to investigate alternative leads, while Aranel offers a sweet smile of gratitude. Tracing her fingertips softly over the circular key set into the safe, Aranel resolves to stay patient until new clues surface. Reaching into his jacket, Adam suddenly pulls out a thick, wax-sealed letter, mentioning that an official invitation arrived for her while she was busy today. Aranel's eyes light up with surprise as she accepts the letter, realizing her public debut into high society is officially beginning. Look at that shadowy red-haired girl looming in the background. Classic rival villainous entrance unlocked. Dark purple shockwaves burst behind her as she reads the event date, shrieking in utter horror upon realizing the grand party is taking place in just 3 days. Panic-stricken Chibi Aranel sweat drops violently, crying out that she hasn't even adapted to basic estate life yet, prompting Adam to offer hiring a top-tier noble etiquette tutor. Adam gives a gentle, soothing smile, encouraging her not to stress too much over aristocratic protocol. Visualizing the majestic McCurt dukedom palace framed by lush garden arches, Adam highlights that attending a party hosted by such an influential house will be a priceless networking opportunity. However, Adam's smile fades into a concerned frown as he cautions her that the party's young host, Lady L'Oreal Mockert, might harbor deep hostility toward her. A shadowy silhouette of a fiery red-haired girl clutching her hands in envy appears behind her, sending poor Chibi Aranel into a total flustered panic as she screams in disbelief. Aranel clutches her forehead in complete stress, agonizing over the fact that her very first high society appearance is at a grand ball hosted by a girl who considers her a total love rival. Clutching the heavy magical safe in her lap, she groans in defeat, feeling like the universe stacked the deck entirely against her. Looking up at Adam with wide, pleading eyes, Aranel desperately suggests skipping the entire event to save herself from the unnecessary drama. However, her loyal butler gently leans down, explaining that despite the risks, this party represents a golden opportunity because an exceptionally influential figure will be attending. Leaning in close, Adam whispers a secretive whisper into Aranel's ear, revealing the identity of the powerful guest who holds the key to her strategic ambitions. The awaited day of the party finally arrives as an ornate dark carriage pulled by noble horses clatters along the cobblestone courtyard of the sprawling Mockert estate. Clad in an elegant light blue dress adorned with silk ribbons and featuring her hair in adorable pigtails, Aranel steps onto the estate grounds, amazed that she actually gathered the courage to show up. Taking careful steps forward, she reflects on the grueling 3-day etiquette boot camp she endured just to survive this evening, silently praying that her crash course manners will hold up under aristocratic scrutiny. Across the lavish reception hall, the birthday girl, Lady L'Oreal Mockert, stands dressed in a stylish olive green gown, casually receiving flattering birthday wishes from admiring noble guests. Offering a bright, picture-perfect smile, Aranel prepares to perform a flawless formal greeting to put her best foot forward. Did you see that instant side-eye? Lady L'Oreal didn't even try to hide her contempt. She saw Aranel and immediately turned her nose up. Lady L'Oreal casts a quick, icy side glance at Aranel, completely ignoring her presence with a cold shoulder. Turning her back on Aranel without saying a single word, L'Oreal immediately bursts into exaggerated giggles with another noble girl, prompting Chibi Aranel to steam with frustration as she questions why this brat is snubbing her on sight. Swallowing her irritation, Aranel reminds herself that high society is a ruthless snake pit, realizing that making her mark in this realm will require much tougher skin. Look at L'Oreal acting like a saint while secretly plotting drama. Classic mean girl maneuver in every romance fantasy. L'Oreal continues her performative chuckles, radiating sweet charm for the surrounding crowd. Aranel narrows her eyes slightly, realizing that just as Aaron warned her, the young lady of Mockert harbors a genuine grudge against her. Adam leans down once more, reminding his young mistress that L'Oreal's petty childish snub is completely irrelevant, as the true guest of honor is about to make their grand entrance. Reaching into her delicate dress folds, Aranel firmly resolves that since she desperately needs high-ranking allies to stop the impending crisis, determined voice, she must display absolute perfection today. Stepping back into L'Oreal's circle, Aranel presents a neatly wrapped small gift box, politely offering it to the birthday girl with a composed expression. L'Oreal accepts the present with a superficial smile. Scoff, taking a subtle jab at Aranel's background while assuming the gift must be cheap or unrefined. Ho, here comes the corporate clapback. You do not try to play shade games with a former overworked Korean office worker. Aranel maintains a bright, pleasant smile, casually introducing herself as Mario Mila. L'Oreal sneers internally while surrounded by her giggling friends, convinced she successfully put the country bumpkin in her place. However, a dangerous, sly smirk forms across Aranel's face, slyly preparing to flip the script entirely. In a sweet, ringing voice, Aranel explains that her gift is an exquisite fragrance diffuser crafted from rare pumpier herbs designed specifically to relax both the mind and body. L'Oreal's eyes narrow in suspicion, wondering if Aranel is simply flexing her herbal knowledge to show off in front of the surrounding aristocrats. Delivering the ultimate verbal sting with an angelic smile. Aranel cheerfully adds that this special herbal blend is also widely prescribed to treat patients suffering from stiff tongues who struggle to speak properly. Lariel recoils in total shock as the subtle roast lands directly. Resting her cheek against her hand, Aranel beams with radiant innocence, looking like a total angel who just delivered a masterclass in polite aristocratic insult. Host commentary, stiff tongue treatment is such an elite-level roast. She basically called her out for having terrible manners without breaking a single rule of etiquette. Inner narrative thoughts reveal Aranel's pride, noting that a real child might have lost her temper, but her adult mind is far too sharp for childish games. Glowing with intense mental dominance, Aranel reflects on her past life surviving the brutal corporate world of South Korea alongside a decade of rugged rural living. She scoffs internally, refusing to waste time playing mind games with spoiled kids. Gasps and quiet murmurs ripple across the surrounding audience as the young nobles digest the sharp backhanded insult. Tilt-headed in mock confusion, Aranel blinks innocently while the crowd whispers in awe. Suddenly, Aranel's golden eyes glint with sharp focus as her attention shifts toward the grand staircase entrance. Crisp, commanding footsteps echo across the marble floor as a distinguished woman steps into the venue. The text identifies her as the Midas Hand of High Society and one of the 4 Supreme Imperial Ministers. Announcers shout at the top of their lungs, formally declaring the arrival of Lady Piolina Allens, the Minister of the Palace. An authoritative elderly noblewoman descends the staircase, holding a dark lace fan across her face. An ornamental frame officially displays the grand title of Piolina Allens, the legendary power player of the court. Background lore explains that Minister Allens occasionally selects promising young noblewomen to mentor, personally launching their debuts into the upper crust of high society. Over the last 20 years, every prominent socialite revered as the flower of the empire passed through her mentorship, making every noble mother desperate to secure a spot for her daughter. Aranel stares in utter bewilderment, her mouth hanging open as she recognizes the imposing figure on the stairs. Staring closely at the familiar facial features behind the lace fan, Aranel's memory instantly sparks with recognition. Flashback memories echo warmly, recalling the kind words of an old acquaintance who urged Aranel to seek her out whenever she needed guidance outside of formal schooling. Flashback chibi memories depict the sweet old lady giving a cheerful peace sign with a bright laugh, revealing her hilariously casual alter ego. Wait, the terrifying palace minister is actually her sweet countryside auntie? Talk about having the ultimate hidden connection. Aranel inwardly screams in disbelief, realizing that the grand minister of the palace is none other than her beloved Aunt Piolet. Lady Piolina smoothly snaps her lace fan shut as she glides past the crowd of bowing nobles. Spotting Aranel standing in the crowd, Lady Piolina offers a subtle, affectionate smile from behind her fan. Stepping directly toward the young girl, Lady Piolina gently taps Aranel's shoulder with her fan, warmly declaring that attending today's party was worth every second now that she found her. Massive shockwaves ripple through the room. Noblewomen whisper frantically, gossiping in shock about how the Emperor's chosen daughter-in-law, Aranel Mila, just received direct attention from the most powerful woman in high society. Lariel overhears the surrounding rumors in complete disbelief as guests chatter about Aranel's farm raising, stunned that Lady Allens would personally acknowledge a former rural girl. Whispering silhouettes sneer about Aranel's rough background catching bugs and scrubbing clothes, causing Aranel to glare coldly in their direction, inwardly calling them annoying pests. Panicking at the sight of the Supreme Minister, L'Oreal, panic breath, shoves her way forward, loudly exclaiming a flustered greeting to capture Lady Allens' attention. Turning on her most exaggerated fake charm, L'Oreal gushes about how honored she is to host the minister at her birthday celebration, claiming she has admired her for years. While putting on a sweet facade for the minister, L'Oreal shoots a terrifying death glare at Aranel, non-verbally ordering her to get lost. Look at Lady Piolina's face darkening. You can literally see her opinion of L'Oreal plummet into the negative digits. Lady Piolina's expression turns deadly cold as she catches L'Oreal's blatant two-faced behavior. Snapping her lace fan open with chilling authority, Lady Piolina delivers a frost-bitten formal birthday greeting, leaving L'Oreal chuckles nervously, sweating nervously as her attempt to brown nose backfires completely. Lady Piolina glares coldly over her lace fan, informing Lariel that if she actually focuses on cultivating a proper character, she might eventually turn into a fine young lady. Gasp! Lariel freezes in absolute terror, completely rattled by the legendary minister's sharp critique. Snapping her fan shut with a cheerful smile, Lady Pialena turns her complete attention to Aranel, while Lariel behind them turns ghostly pale with fear. Aranel blinks in utter confusion, flustered, squeaking out a nervous gasp as the Grand Minister steps right up to her. With deliberate, graceful footsteps, the minister glides forward. Golden light illuminates Aranel's bewildered face as she stares at the familiar figure, wondering if her eyes are playing tricks on her. Voice trembling softly, whisper, Aranel timidly utters the name Aunt Piolette, causing the legendary court figure to turn around with a tender look in her eyes. In a single heart-melting moment, Lady Pialena's intimidating aura vanishes into thin air, replaced by a radiant, joyful smile as she gazes down at her beloved favorite niece. Gently patting Aranel's blonde head, Aunt Piolette warmly gushes about how deeply she missed her. Host commentary. Look at that instant 180 transformation. She went from Supreme Court Dragon to doting country auntie in 0.2 seconds. Blinking in shock, Aranel asks if it really is her, confessing how much she startled her. Aunt Piolette chuckles playfully, ho ho ho, giggle, admitting she simply wanted to pull a silly little prank after being apart for so long, gushing over how Aranel grew even cuter. Wrapping her hands affectionately around Aranel's chubby cheeks, Aunt Piolette beams with genuine warmth, reassuring her that she came specifically to see her and missed her immensely. Aunt Piolette's soft green eyes glimmer with profound affection, displaying a motherly warmth that high society almost never gets to witness. Arenel's golden eyes widen with emotional warmth, her cheeks flushing bright pink as the heavy burden on her shoulders instantly vanishes. With an apologetic look, Aunt Piolette softly apologizes for disappearing without a single word back then, leaving Aranel silent as she absorbs her heartfelt words. This emotional reunion hits so hard. After dealing with snobbish high society snubs, having an absolute powerhouse in your corner who genuinely loves you is the ultimate flex. Aunt Piolette takes Aranel's tiny hands in hers, holding them tight with boundless affection. Looking straight into her golden eyes, Aunt Piolette delivers a solemn promise, swearing that from this day forward, she will stand by Aranel's side and offer her unconditional help in every way possible. Flashback memories resurface, showing Aunt Piolette back in her humble village attire, cheerfully dropping off fresh produce, while Aranel sweats nervously, insisting she really didn't need to go through all that trouble. Overflowing with emotion, Aranel throws her arms around Aunt Piolette's neck, burying her tearful face into her shoulder while hugging her with all her strength. High above the grand estate courtyard, the two remain locked in a tender embrace on the sunlit balcony, with Aranel whispering internally how painfully much she missed her dear aunt. As night falls over the magnificent imperial palace illuminated under the starry sky, news of the shocking mentorship begins to circulate among the high nobility. Adam stands neatly in his formal butler attire, placing a respectful hand over his chest with a warm, proud smile. Sitting inside a quiet, sunlit tea room, Aranel sips her tea while Adam chuckles softly, confessing that he was thoroughly surprised by the sudden mentorship announcement, too. Watch out! She's downing that high-end tea like it's plain water after a marathon. Former corporate worker habits die hard. Aranel takes a huge, hasty gulp, puffing her cheeks out in an embarrassed emph as she swallows. Coughing slightly, Aranel frantically waves her hand to calm Adam down, while the handsome butler smiles, asking what could possibly make her so fiercely determined today. Setting her teacup down smoothly, Aranel offers a sweet, glowing smile, revealing that she is heading out to meet a dear friend she hasn't seen in a very long time. Out in the bustling city center, a towering stone statue of His Highness Fermi stands proudly beside a roaring fountain, as passing commoners chatter in awe about how majestic and intimidating the giant monument looks. Dressed in a charming beret and cute traveler dress, Aranel stands before that gargantuan monument with a sweat drop, flabbergasted that town officials place such a terrifying stone giant right in the middle of a public plaza. Suddenly, a firm, heavy boot steps down directly beside her, catching Aranel's attention while she ponders what the town planners were thinking. Turning around, Aranel's face brightens up like a blooming flower as she recognizes the person standing before her. Standing right in front of her is Mars, wearing his signature white eye mask and simple vest, as Aranel happily shouts his name. The mysterious masked boy returns. Look at him nodding so stoically while she treats him like a lost puppy. Arenal bounces up to him asking cheerfully if he had any trouble finding the location, while Mars gives a quiet, stoic nod. Reaching out enthusiastically, Arenal grabs Mars's hand firmly, announcing that it's time for their grand outing. Guiding him through the paved streets, Arenal excitedly explains that she found an incredible picnic spot located just a brief stroll away. Looking back over her shoulder with sparkling eyes, Arenal energetically warns him that she has tons of stories saved up, so he better prepare his ears for an earful. Hearing her lively chatter, Mars's hidden expression softens, a sweet, subtle smile forming across his lips. Sitting comfortably on the lush grass beneath a massive sunlit tree, the duo munches on hearty sandwiches as Arenal recounts the grand party, explaining how her humble Aunt Piolet turned out to be Lady Allens, the supreme minister of the palace. Resting her hands on her lap under the soothing forest shade, Arenal reflects on how rapidly her entire life has shifted, forcing her to constantly worry about high society etiquette and imperial dignity. Pumping her fist in the air with fiery enthusiasm, Arenal declares that no matter what obstacles arise, she will master high society and rebuild her family's marquisate to absolute glory. Look at Chibi Arenal seeking approval while he just quietly munches his sandwich. This dynamic is comedy gold. Chibi Arenal pops up asking if she can really accomplish it, while Mars takes a calm bite of his food. Nodding his head twice with quiet confidence, Mars non-verbally reassures her that she has what it takes. Smiling brightly, Arenal rustles through her brown leather shoulder bag, excitedly announcing that she brought a special surprise gift for him today. Pulling out a clear glass jar filled with glossy ruby red candy drops, Arenal hands it to Mars with a sweet thank you, leaving the masked boy staring in awe. Mars gazes down at the sparkling jar in quiet amazement, causing Arenal to suddenly sweat nervously, flustered that her sweet gift might be overly dramatic. Waving her hands in a frantic panic, Arenal blushes furiously, stuttering that it's just a tiny treat to snack on whenever he gets bored, while Mars quietly nods his thanks. Trying to smoothly pivot the conversation, Arenal asks where he is currently staying in the capital, wondering if he managed to secure decent lodgings already. Mars freezes in place, his brown eyes growing quiet and mysterious under his white mask as he remains totally silent. Picking up a small fallen twig, Mars leans over and slowly writes a single word into the dirt. Arenal leans down, reading the word "moved" out loud in total shock. A narrative text box clarifies that Mars's family originally resided in the capital. Arenal gasps in surprise, exclaiming in disbelief that he wasn't living completely on his own this whole time. Look at her brain firing off wild conspiracies. She's imagining shadowy billionaire aristocrats when he's probably just living in a secret hideout. Arenal visualizes shadowy aristocratic parents with fancy fans and luxury clothes, wondering if she spent weeks worrying over a rich kid. Turning to face Arenal directly, Arenal curiously questions why someone whose family lives in the prosperous capital was staying all the way out in rural Galmum. Text boxes visually depict Mars's brief stick-written responses stating family business, prompting Arenal to pry further about what business, only for him to write just a family business while sweating nervously. Narrowing her eyes into an hilariously intense chibi side-eye glare, Arenal stares down Mars with total suspicion, silently sniffing out a secret. Leaning back comfortably onto the soft grass, Arenal lets out a peaceful sigh, thinking that even if he keeps secrets, he must have valid reasons just like she does, resolving not to pry into his private life as long as he's safe and fed. Out of nowhere, Mars's heavy boot steps forward on the lush grass, making Arenal tilt her head in sheer confusion. Noticing Mars strapping his shoulder bag on, Arenal, sitting under the shady tree, asks if he's really leaving already, while Mars gives a quiet, stoic nod. Reaching out his hand toward her, Mars pauses for a brief second, causing Arenal's golden eyes to widen in genuine wonder. Text appears declaring, "See you again," as Mars extends an affectionate hand to Arenal under the glowing sunlit tree canopy. Look at that radiant smile. She's glowing brighter than the morning sun after getting a proper farewell from her silent bestie. Arenal gives him a sweet, beaming smile as they part ways. Back in her luxurious private study at the estate, Arenal rests her cheek on her hand, lost deep in thoughtful deliberation. Recalling how both Uncle Zimmer and Aunt Piolet turned out to be supreme imperial officials, Arenal visualizes, chuckles, adorable chibi icons of them with a thoughtful expression. expression. A sudden memory of Uncle Amos wearing glasses and a neat ponytail flashes in her mind, making her wonder if he is actually a high-ranking noble hiding in plain sight, too. Text boxes detail how Uncle Amos was the sole adult who believed her warnings about the upcoming Great Famine and patiently taught her economics back in the day. If her third village uncle also turns out to be a secret Grand Duke or something, I'm calling script armor. Nobody has this many hidden VIPs in their backyard. Recalling Uncle Amos standing by her desk with lesson papers, Arenal realizes that if he is a noble, he must be a scholar. Leaning over her desk, Arenal calculates that if she narrows down all Academy scholars matching his description and mails them letters, she might actually track him down. Picking up her fountain pen, Arenal begins scribbling on fine paper, noting how Aunt Pilot used an alias super close to her real name, so Uncle Amos probably did the exact same thing. Stamping a wax seal onto the envelope, Arenal writes a heartfelt message pleading to talk to Uncle Amos about the catastrophic famine striking in 1 year. The letter continues, begging for his urgent assistance so they can work together and save thousands of innocent lives across the realm. Pouring every ounce of her sincerity onto the paper, Arenal finishes writing with a desperate request for him to send a reply immediately. Suddenly, 2 soft knocks ring out at her study door as Adam politely announces his presence from outside. Enter Adam, the ultimate butler. This man operates with 200% efficiency 24 hours a day. Pushing the heavy wooden door open, creak, Adam smiles warmly while stepping inside. Placing his hand over his chest, Adam softly worries that she'll burn herself out working right after returning home. But Arenal spins around in her chair with a grand declaration that this is what rebuilding her marquisate requires, huffs. Handing the sealed envelope over, Arenal brightly asks if he can deliver it straight to the Royal Academy, taking Adam slightly aback as he politely accepts. Smiling smoothly, Adam places his hand inside his vest to share a few crucial financial updates regarding the estate. Text bubbles reveal that Adam personally ousted the shady trust manager at Hugo Brent Bank, issuing a severe warning so no one steals from the family ever again. Overjoyed by his brilliant efficiency, Arenal clasps her hands together and praises Adam with total adoration. Hold on! Good news from the palace usually means money. Show her the gold! Adam chuckles softly, revealing that the Imperial Palace has granted her a permanent pension as official compensation for her late parents. Golden coin sparkles illuminate Arenal's shocked face as her jaw drops in sheer disbelief. Gasp, repeating the word pension in total amazement. A narrative breakdown explains how the marquisate currently owns only 5,000 bring, roughly 5 million won, which barely covers basic repairs and maid wages. Sweating nervously, Arenal realizes that without imperial intervention, her family's finances would be plunged deep into negative debt. Gulping nervously, Arenal clutches her chest, timidly asking Adam what the exact pension inheritance amount is. Adam's face turns coolly shadowed in high suspense, dramatically setting up the grand reveal. 50,000 bring a month? That's 10 times her current income. She just got the ultimate imperial stimulus check. Massive text explodes on screen declaring 50,000 bring per month. Arenal's eyes go wide as saucers, her breath catching in her throat in pure shock. Adam reassures her with a proud smile, explaining that this allowance permanently solves all basic operating expenses for the marquisate. But surprisingly, Arenal looks back at him with a serious, unyielding expression, calling out his name. Framed by elegant gold roses, text boxes highlight her strategic mindset. True restoration requires creating a self-sustaining revenue stream, not relying on handouts. Raising her hand with fiery ambition, huffs, Arenal passionately declares that this gold only brings them to the starting line. Standing tall under the warm chandelier light, Arenal lays out her long-term business vision, while Adam listens with deep respect. Scene shifts under a dark, mystical night sky as sparkling blue light surrounds a silver-haired boy. Removing his white mask, Mars reveals his striking face, icy blue eyes glowing under the moonlight as he gazes into the distance. Reaching down into his brown leather shoulder bag, Mars quietly searches for something precious. Look at how tenderly he's holding that jar of red candies under the stars. He acts so stoic, but he's an absolute softie for Arenal. Mars cradles the jar of ruby candies Arenal gave him, whispering her name softly into the night sky. Cut to a massive, majestic stone Gothic complex under the bright morning sky labeled the Academy. Walking along the stone hallway, 2 scholars hold identical letters in hand, baffled that both received the exact same message. Adjusting his glasses, one scholar scoffs mockingly, calling the letter's claim about an upcoming great famine totally ridiculous. The other scholar agrees, boasting that no empire is wealthier than Aubryon, laughing at the kid's wild imagination, while noting there is no researcher named Amos here anyway. Crumpling the paper tightly in his fist, the irritated researcher groans, complaining about wasting time on spoiled kids' prank letters. Suddenly, a hand taps his shoulder from behind as a calm, commanding voice asks what he's holding. Boom! Enter the big boss, Clyde Siegfried, Minister of Economy and head of the academy. Is everyone from this small village secretly running the entire government? The scholars turn pale with shock, gasping out his title in absolute terror. Sweating profusely, the researcher tries to hide the letter, nervously stammering that it's just a silly prank, not worth his grace's time. Taking the letter into his hand, Lord Clyde slowly unrolls the crumpled paper. Clyde's eyes grow completely serious behind his dark-tinted glasses as he reads Aranel's detailed economic breakdown in silence. Muttering thoughtfully, Lord Clyde notes that whoever wrote this child definitely wasn't raised in an easy environment, firmly announcing that he will personally keep the letter. Lord Clyde sternly scolds the two foolish scholars, declaring that they still have a mountain of knowledge to learn before ordering them straight back to their laboratory. Adjusting his glasses, Lord Clyde gazes down at Aranel's handwritten letter with a gentle, proud smile, realizing she's already actively searching for him. Wait a second, Lord Clyde is Uncle Amos? The Imperial Minister of Economy himself was hanging out in a rural village teaching a little girl basic economics? Talk about hiding in plain sight. Smiling softly, Lord Clyde marvels at her sheer intelligence, eagerly anticipating the day they finally reunite. Meanwhile, back inside the estate's grand ballroom, clap clap, hands clap sharply in tempo as Lady Allens commands Aranel to keep her chin held high and spine perfectly straight. Glowing under the chandelier lights, Aranel carefully maintains a flawless posture in her sweeping yellow gown, executing every movement with utmost precision. Lady Allens clasps her cheeks in total delight, Kiggle, triumphantly gushing that her master intuition about Aranel's natural grace was spot on. Demonstrating a rather peculiar dance step, Lady Allens twirls around while Aranel blinks in sheer confusion, wondering if she's watching a crane. A crane dance underneath a luxury dress? High society trends are getting weirder by the minute, but hey, if it gets results, who are we to judge? Lady Allens proudly explains that even if her feet are flapping like a crane under her skirt, to the audience, she will look like an ethereal swan. While Lady Allens gushes over how every noble lady will envy her, Chibi Aranel sweat drops nervously, baffled that such weird antics pass as high fashion. Urging her to push through one last practice run before tea, Lady Allens checks her endurance, but Aranel boldly flexes that her years of hard farming labor gave her unlimited stamina. Rhythmically clapping her hands in tempo, the etiquette instructor counts out the dance beats as Aranel glides smoothly across the polished floor. Sitting down together over steaming porcelain teacups, gently Lady Allens observes that Aranel is still deeply troubled by the impending Great Famine. Look at her serious little face! While all the other kids her age are worrying about party dresses, Aranel is out here trying to prevent a national economic collapse. Aranel takes a slow, thoughtful sip of tea, carefully wording her reply. Sweating nervously, Aranel realizes that telling the literal truth about the catastrophic famine detailed in the novel's original plot would make her sound completely crazy. Looking into her eyes with deep warmth, Lady Allens softly admits that she believes her, though warning that a true disaster cannot be fully stopped by sheer preparation alone. Nodding in quiet agreement, Aranel acknowledges the harsh reality, yet her golden eyes remain fiercely resolute. Text bubbles emphasize her unyielding resolve, asserting that doing nothing while innocent people suffer is simply not an option. Setting her teacup down with a confident smirk, Aranel radiates pure determination, proving she isn't backing down from this fight. Host commentary! Look at Lady Allens' eyes glowing. She isn't just impressed, she looks like a proud mentor who just found her ultimate protege. Lady Allens gazes back with an affectionate, deeply impressed smile. Crossing her arms, Lady Allens clearly states that while her noble intent is admirable, backing such massive claims politically requires undeniable proof, prompting Aranel to clarify her actual request. Raising her index finger with a sly glint, Lady Allens leans forward, whispering that she might be persuaded to bend the rules for her. Looking wide-eyed with surprise, Arenelle gasps in wonder as Lady Allens demands enough assurance to risk her entire political career on her behalf. Reaching out with a tender touch, Lady Allens gently rests her hand on Arenelle's dress collar, setting up a life-changing proposal. Oh boy, that dramatic mentor stare. Whenever an elder noble leans in like this, you know a massive contract is about to drop. Leaning in close, Lady Allens looks into Arenelle's eyes with profound seriousness. Glowing text bubbles reveal her inner desire, confessing that she has searched her whole life for a worthy successor to inherit her mantle. Placing her hand over her heart with radiant passion, Lady Allens declares her true intentions to pass on her legacy. Flashing a dazzling smile, Lady Allens invites Arenelle to formally become her official successor, leaving Arenelle frozen in shock. Explosive background sparkles illuminate the room as the grand proposition hangs dramatically in the air. Visualizing shadowy high society nobles behind her, Lady Allens promises to hand over her entire network of elite connections and political power. Sweating profusely in total panic, Arenelle clutches her chest, listening as Lady Allens adds that this will guarantee her spot as the future crown princess. Sounds exactly like a professor scouting a grad student. Manhwa authors always find a way to make high society politics feel like brutal college admissions. Bold text flashes on screen detailing Arenelle's hilarious internal realization. Happily sipping her tea, Lady Allens praises Arenelle's extraordinary genius, eagerly asking if she'll accept this golden opportunity. Staring back with a strained, awkward smile, Arenelle prepares to deliver a difficult response. And suddenly, Lady Allens' frosty demeanor just melts away, replaced by this totally surprised, curious expression the moment Arenelle starts talking. Gently taking Lady Allens' hands into hers, Arenelle politely apologizes, firmly stating that she has a completely different destiny she wishes to pursue. Restlessly resting her cheek on her palm, Lady Allens listens intently with an amused, fond expression. She rejected the grand high society boss and made her like her even more? That's main character aura at its finest. Chuckling softly, Lady Allens teases that her sharp intellect only makes her want to recruit her even more. Gently squeezing her tiny hands, Lady Allens quietly asks if the path she wants to walk is the exact same one her late father, Marquis Mila, chose. Looking at her with profound respect, Lady Allens assures her that while she trusts her talent, the road ahead will be filled with unimaginable trials. Winking playfully while giving a peace sign, Lady Allens lightens the atmosphere as Arenelle nods with a relieved smile. Soft rose-framed text highlights Arenelle's heartfelt sincerity, expressing that while she wants to save the Empire, she refuses to drag Lady Allens into political ruin. Bowing her head humbly, Arenelle pours out her gratitude, deeply touching Lady Allens' heart. Lady Allens gazes at her in complete awe, moved by the young girl's immense maturity and selfless heart. Look at Arenelle glowing like an angel. She didn't just earn a mentor, she gained a powerful ally who genuinely loves her. Arenelle beams with a radiant, confident smile that lights up the entire drawing room. Raising her finger in sudden realization, Lady Allens repeats the word trend with an intrigued look on her face. Clapping her hands together as an idea sparks, Lady Allens gasps out loud, realizing how they can turn this strategy to their advantage. Standing up from the tea table, Arenelle curtsies politely, offering her deepest gratitude to Lady Allens for all her guidance. Fast forward to a sunny afternoon, Arenelle looks breathtaking in a refined navy blue and gray Victorian dress adorned with stylish ribbons. Hearing the crisp clatter of horse hooves and carriage wheels, box text reveals that a guest has finally arrived at the estate for the tea party. Stepping out of the luxury carriage, a cheery, freckled young noble girl with yellow braided pigtails waves excitedly, greeting Arenelle with a giant smile. Stepping off her luxury carriage, the cheerful, freckled girl bows politely, nervously stammering out that it's a true honor to meet Arenelle. She introduces herself as Eileen Annis from Annis County, to which Arenelle responds with a warm, welcoming greeting. Looking at Eileen's sparkling, star-filled eyes, Arenelle acknowledges that this enthusiastic girl is indeed the hostess of today's gathering. Yet, seeing such genuine excitement makes a tiny pang of guilt flare up inside her heart. Greeting her hostess with polished, flawless etiquette, Arenelle maintains a charming smile on the outside, though internally she reminds herself she didn't attend this tea party just to make cute childhood friends. Host commentary: look at this stunning glass sunroom. The artist went absolutely crazy with the lighting and floating butterfly details in this panel. Entering the sunlit conservatory filled with blooming flowers and fluttering butterflies, the atmosphere radiates pure elegance. Sitting around a lavish glass table, 3 other young noble girls turn toward her in unison, offering a surprisingly heartfelt and warm welcome to their modest gathering. Arenal's golden eyes flicker with thoughtful curiosity. She recalls that the young ladies invited here barely hold any influence in mainstream high society, which explains why their hospitality feels far more sincere than the fake smiles at Lady Machurt's birthday party. Maintaining her composure with a delicate, polite smile, Aranel prepares her next move as she takes her seat among the small group of noble daughters. Gotta love how manhwa characters always introduce themselves like RTG guild members revealing their stats. 2 girls happily state their names: Schiller Borden of the Borden Viscounty and Julie Parmis from the Parmis Barony, who also happens to be a talented wind mage. Listening quietly as each girl shares her background, Aranel glitters with quiet confidence, secretly knowing every single detail about their family legacies beforehand. Placing her hand over her heart with effortless grace, Aranel introduces herself as Aranel Myla of the Myla Marquisate, captivating everyone at the table with her radiant presence. Text bubbles highlight her sharp strategic mind, revealing that her attendance here was calculated down to the smallest detail after carefully auditing every single invitation. Ever since she pulled off that miraculous stunt at the birthday banquet, event invitations have been piling up like junk mail. But out of the entire stack, this specific tea party immediately grabbed her attention for a very clever reason. Detailed profile visualizer cards appear on screen as Aranel breaks down her targets. Host Eileen's family controls lucrative land real estate, while young Julie's barony dominates the Empire's major distribution pipelines. Shifting her gaze toward Schiller, Aranel notes that the Borden Viscounty operates an extensive underground storage network, the exact missing piece needed for her grand famine preparation strategy. Flashing a bright, innocent smile toward her new companions, Aranel knows that whatever business ideas she plants in these impressionable girls' heads will naturally reach the ears of their powerful parents. Ha! Look at Eileen clasping her hands like she's meeting her favorite K-pop idol. Eileen's eyes sparkle with absolute adoration as she squeals in delight, confessing that none of them ever expected a high-tier noble like Aranel to actually accept their invitation. An elegant, shadowy illustration reveals Lady Piolette posing with a lace fan under a golden parasol, while Eileen eagerly explains that their exclusive social club was proudly named La Piole in honor of her aunt. Clasping her hands together, Eileen sweetly admits that because their families come from humble, non-prominent backgrounds, they assumed they would never capture the interest of someone as grand as Aranel. Sweating nervously with a strained smile, Aranel realizes that her formidable Aunt Pilot actually has a dedicated fan club among young noble girls, proving her aunt is even more legendary than she imagined. Leaning across the table with wide, pleading eyes, Eileen cutely asks if Aranel might consider doing them a tiny special favor. Side chibi bubbles pop up as the rest of the girls chime in with adoring squeals, begging her to share even a tiny bit of her high society wisdom with them. Resting her cheek against her fingers, Aranel observes their sparkling eyes, softly touched by how pure and earnest their admiration truly is. Cue the sharp anime eye glow. When that golden eye narrows like that, you know an absolute mastermind play is about to go down. Aranel's golden eye flashes with intense focus as she realizes this is the ultimate win-win. She holds what they desire, making it absurdly easy to win their trust. Bathed in the warm sunset glow streaming through the solarium windows, the 4 young girls chat endlessly over hot tea, forming an unbreakable new alliance. Later that night, inside her grand bedroom, the sheer physical and mental exhaustion catches up to her as Aranel lets out a dramatic gasp and collapses face first onto her soft mattress. Rolling onto her side with flushed cheeks, chibi Aranel groans softly, completely drained after surviving hours of intense social networking. Visualization bubbles display cute chibis of the girls bombarding her with endless questions. Aranel, exhausted, sighs, notes how exhausting it was, though taking comfort in the fact that she successfully left a glowing impression. Closing her heavy eyelids as sleep takes over, Aranel vows to discuss her newly acquired business contacts sex with Adam the moment she wakes up tomorrow. The scene smoothly transitions as the silver crescent moon glides across the dark night sky, gradually yielding to the crisp, golden light of dawn. The next morning, Britton unexpectedly arrives at the estate doorstep, looking dapper while holding a massive, breathtaking bouquet of white and vibrant blue roses. Smiling warmly, he asks if she enjoyed yesterday's party. Staring in total astonishment, Aranel blinks at the gorgeous bouquet, barely able to process his sudden appearance. Oh man, the classic "I used a fake excuse to avoid you, but you showed up anyway" moment. You can literally see the sweat drops sliding down Aranel's head. Aranel panics internally, realizing her excuse to skip seeing him completely backfired because he returned the very next day. Standing together on the grand front steps, Aranel awkwardly clears her throat, politely inviting Britton to step inside the estate for tea. Inside the luxurious drawing room, a mouth-watering three-tiered dessert stand is displayed, piled high with fresh berries, delicate pastries, frosted donuts, and gourmet macarons. Taking a gentlemanly sip from his golden porcelain teacup, Britton smiles brightly, radiating undeniable charm as he rests his cup on the saucer. Aranel warmly reports that all banking affairs have been officially settled, and her team is currently planning a profitable new business enterprise. Glancing out toward the courtyard where an estate guard stands duty, Aranel mentions that she's eagerly awaiting a carrier pigeon from Mila Grand Duchy, admitting she feels slightly anxious about dealing with the mysterious Grand Duke. Reassuring her with a sweet, comforting smile, Britton tells her not to worry, mentioning that while Grand Duke Mila is notoriously strict, he deeply respects individuals who possess unyielding resolve. Check out the little chibi Piolet in the corner. Britton is out here keeping full tabs on all her social victories like a dedicated news reporter. Side text captions remind us how Aranel dramatically snatched Lady Allen's right out from under Lady McCurt's nose. Aranel freezes mid-sip, sweating profusely with Britton's drop of that gossip. Waving her hands in dramatic protest, Aranel sputters out that saying she won over Lady Alicent's is a massive exaggeration, wondering how on earth word traveled to him so fast. Britton flinches slightly, turning his gaze away as a faint, delicate blush creeps across his boyish face. Floating thought bubbles highlight his internal hesitation as he stammers out that while they are certainly acquaintances, nervous chuckle, his feelings and situation are entirely different. Tilting her head in utter bewilderment, Aranel looks back at him with big golden eyes, completely failing to understand what he means by different. Host commentary? Look at him adjusting his tie like a nervous adult on a job interview. He's trying so hard to act cool, but his blushing ears give him away completely. Nervous fluster creeps up his neck as Britton tugs at his blue necktie, giggle, gathering his courage. Staring at him in sheer confusion, Aranel reads between his cryptic words about wanting a modest, sunny husband, completely baffled by his bizarre logic, even while secretly admitting that sunny male leads are totally her guilty pleasure in romance novels. Setting his cup down with absolute seriousness, Britton looks straight into her golden eyes, his tone dropping into a tender, sincere whisper. Leaning slightly forward across the tea table, Britton blushes softly, declaring that he came here today with a very specific, undeniable purpose. Dramatic text bubbles illuminate the entire room in bright pink light as he boldly asks if she will grant him the honor of going on their very first official date. Boom! Direct hit! Look at Aranel's face turning redder than a strawberry. The childhood romance progression is hitting maximum speed. Shocked beyond belief, Aranel gasps out loud as a massive blush explodes across her cheeks, leaving her completely speechless. Continuing right where we left off, Britton warmly explains that the city's annual Glass Flower Festival is taking place tomorrow night, complete with a breathtaking fireworks display to mark the coronation anniversary, before gently asking if Aranel would attend with them. Aranel hesitates, her golden eyes widening slightly as the mention of fireworks triggers a vivid memory from her past. Oh boy, here comes the classic Otomi rejection. You can practically hear Britton's heart cracking in half right now. Bowing her head in polite refusal, Aranel softly apologizes to the prince. Flashing a sweet, earnest smile, Aranel explains that she has already promised to watch the fireworks display with a dear friend. Sitting back at the tea table, Aranel feels a slight blush creep onto her cheeks, secretly hoping she didn't crush His Highness's feelings too harshly. Britton freezes, his deep blue eye narrowing as he mentally repeats her words, questioning who this special friend could possibly be. Look at him putting together the pieces like a jealousy-fueled detective. The inner monologue is real. Deep down, Britton wonders if Aranel still remembers the childhood vow she made with Mars all those years ago. Clenching his fist tightly against his trousers, Britain struggles with the realization that their current situation is far more complicated than simple childhood memories. A grand mental portrait highlights everyone surrounding Arenelle, acknowledging how her high society connections have blossomed since arriving in the capital, filling her life with loyal allies. Staring down in quiet contemplation, Britain recognizes that her social circle is vast enough for her to easily reject a royal invitation, compelling him to verify where her true loyalties lie. Glancing back up at Arenelle's sweet face, Britain remains composed, carefully weighing his next words. Softening her posture, Arenelle thoughtfully suggests that while tomorrow is occupied, she would gladly clear her calendar for him on any other day. Talk about a masterclass in social diplomacy. She managed to reject a prince while still making him feel special. Arenelle offers a charming smile, reassuring him that she will prioritize their next meeting. Silent for a beat, Britain stares at her radiant profile, taking comfort in her sincere words despite the initial disappointment. Meanwhile, deep within the shadowy woods outside the estate, young Mars stands alone beneath the moonlit foliage, adjusting his dark eye bandage. Letting out a soft exhale, Mars relaxes his posture, having successfully sneaked near the mansion grounds unnoticed. Inside her cozy bedroom, Arenelle stretches her arms, gasps, suddenly pausing as a subtle tapping noise echoes from her balcony window. Throwing the window wide open, Arenelle gasped in delight, shouting out Mars's name while asking what on earth brought him here at such an ungodly hour. Flustered by her loud welcome, Mars flinches slightly, sweating as he quickly checks to make sure no estate guards spotted him. A childhood promise fulfillment scene? Grab your tissues, folks. The romantic tension is off the charts. Thought bubbles reveal Arenelle recalling the exact promise they shared in the past. A glowing flashback depicts young Arenelle reaching her small hand out with sparkling eyes, brimming with pure, innocent excitement. Zooming in on Mars' trembling eye, the memory plays out vividly as her youthful voice echoes in his mind. Back in the past, young Arenelle eagerly babbled about the upcoming Glass Flower Festival, gushing over how perfect it would be for the two of them to watch the grand fireworks show together. Mars blushes intensely, his cheeks burning red as he realizes that Arenelle held on to that tiny promise all this time just to go with him. A split illustration contrasts Britain's somber profile with Mars's reddened face, silently confirming that the person holding the true key to Arenelle's heart isn't the prince after all. Fragrant golden tea streams smoothly from a porcelain teapot into a floral teacup, shifting the scene back to Arenelle's business operations. Seated comfortably across from Lady Allence in a sunlit drawing room, Arenelle gracefully serves tea with flawless aristocratic manners. Look at Lady Allence squealing like a proud grandma. She is completely obsessed with Arenelle's cleverness. Lady Allence clasps her cheeks in pure joy, praising Arenelle for learning social maneuvers so fast. Bowing her head modesty, Arenelle laughs softly, giggle, sweetly deflecting the noblewoman's glowing compliments. Inquiring with keen interest, Lady Allence asks how their recent venture to kickstart a new high society trend turned out, prompting Arenelle to smile knowingly. Chuckling with refined elegance, Lady Allence boasts that she hosted an exclusive gathering where no one guessed the secret ingredient, receiving overwhelming praise from every noble guest. Leaning back in her ornate chair, Lady Allence confidently predicts that this new recipe will become the most sought-after delicacy in the entire empire for years to come. Pointing toward a plate of delicate pink pastries, Lady Allence eagerly asks when Arenelle plans to reveal that these luxury treats are actually made from red sugar beets. Look at that devious golden eye glow. She turned a literal pig feed crop into high society fine dining. Arenelle's eye sparkles with mastermind precision as her secret business strategy unveils. Visual card frames display vibrant yellow blossoms as text confirms that her primary commercial product is indeed the humble red sugar beet. Flashback panels depict young Arenelle buried in heavy agricultural texts, researching hard-to-grow crops capable of surviving harsh, barren soil in preparation for the upcoming historical famine. Standing in a dusty, sun-baked field, young Arenelle observed fields of wild red sugar beets, realizing their untouched potential. Holding a tiny potted sprout alongside funny chibi illustrations, Arenelle explains that in this world, raw sugar beets were notoriously bitter and exclusively used as cheap livestock feed. Sparkling glass jars filled with translucent ruby beet pearls appear, proving that with proper extraction and processing, the crop becomes intensely sweet, hydrating, and highly nutritious. Walking through the bustling capital market, it, Arenal recognized that she was the sole individual possessing the modern knowledge required to transform bitter animal feed into a gourmet sensation. A tactical visualization demonstrates how utilizing Lady Allen's social influence to hype the beet dessert among elites creates massive market demand, setting up a lucrative distribution empire. She's out here playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers, rebuilding a marquisate and solving a national famine at the same time? Massive brain play. Arenal highlights how accumulating huge beet reserves now will yield massive revenue while saving the population during the famine. Chuckling happily at the tea table, Lady Allen's praises Arenal's thorough foresight, completely impressed by her meticulous planning. Lady Allen's warmly offers her full support, asking Arenal to prepare even larger batches of red sugar beet treats for the next high-profile tea party. Flashing a radiant, confident smile, Lady Allen's promises that her social standing will ensure the product's ultimate success. Arenal internally celebrates another massive business victory, taking a gentle, triumphant sip of tea. Close her eyes peacefully, Arenal silently prays that her strategic plan continues to unfold smoothly without any unexpected hitches. The scene smoothly transitions to the warm golden shades of sunset painted across the horizon as evening falls over the estate. Arenal's peeking eagerly out through her glass window frame, scanning the estate courtyard with those wide, expectant eyes. The date night is officially on. Mars better show up in style because our girl is waiting by the window. Arenal's heart flutters with excitement as she realizes Mars will be arriving any second to escort her to the fireworks. Tapping her chin thoughtfully, Arenal ponders whether Mars plans on making his usual theatrical entry right through her bedroom window once again. Right on cue, a quiet knocking rattles against the window pane, causing Arenal to perk up immediately with a joyful smile. Peeking out into the warm golden light of dusk, Arenal greets him with excitement as Mars silently extends his hand down toward her from the outdoor ledge. She blinks in slight surprise, gently placing her palm in his while questioning a witty tone if he wants to hold hands. Before she can process his intention, Mars scoops her up in a sleek princess carry and leaps straight off the balcony edge, prompting Arenal to scream out loud in absolute terror given they're on the third floor. Landing effortlessly onto the cobblestone path without breaking a sweat, Mars cushions the impact perfectly like a seasoned ninja. Bro really jumped 3 stories down just to flex his romantic action hero skills? Talk about zero safety protocol. Staggering slightly with dizzy spirals over her head, Arenal clutches her forehead while breathlessly complaining that they could have easily used a normal staircase. Ignoring her dizzy protests, Mars nonchalantly points toward a hidden gap tucked beneath the overgrown garden hedge, leaving Arenal puzzled by his secretive route. Sweating nervously, Arenal chuckles softly as she wonders out loud if this dog hole was always secretly hidden here, urging him that there's no need to hurry like escapees. Stepping out into the vibrant festival grounds filled with colorful lanterns and buzzing crowds, townspeople excitedly whisper about the upcoming fireworks show and the Crown Prince's official speech. Host commentary, smart move avoiding the main plaza. If Prince Britain spotted her on a secret nighttime date with Mars, the jealousy plotline would explode right then and there. Arenal touches her chin cautiously, realizing that heading toward the main stage risks getting caught by the prince. Swiftly making up her mind, Arenal tugs on Mars's sleeve and suggests taking the quieter path away from the royal gathering. Ascending a serene hilltop nestled under the full moon, Arenal marvels at the breathtaking view overlooking the glowing city lights below. Patting the soft grass beside her with a cheerful smile, she warmly invites Mars to join her on the lawn. Hugging her knees with a fond expression, Arenal muses about how lovely it feels to spend consecutive evenings together, playfully wondering if she's the only one feeling nostalgic. Look at that background spectacle! The studio budget went all in on these fireworks reflections. Suddenly, a brilliant flash illuminates the dark sky as the grand fireworks display officially kicks off with a resounding boom! Cascades of glittering light shower over the horizon, painting the sky in dazzling golden rays as Arenal gasps in pure fascination. Turning toward him with a gentle blush, Arenal softly asks for his thoughts on the dazzling festival show. Her golden eyes sparkle brightly in the firework glow, capturing every subtle detail of his side profile. Watching Mars completely transfixed by the vibrant bursts above, Aranel smiles internally, fond of how childlike and innocent he appears in this rare, tranquil moment. Nestling her chin against her arms, a sense of profound peace washes over her as she whispers how genuine this fun feels. She's so comfortable around him that she's literally drifting off to sleep mid-date. That's ultimate trust right there. Drowsiness gradually creeps over her, and Aranel closes her eyes, deeply satisfied with her choice of companion tonight. Exhaustion finally wins as her body relaxes completely, resting her head against Mars's firm shoulder while fast asleep. Softening his gaze, Mars gently turns his head toward her, recognizing how hard she's been working lately. With utmost delicacy, Mars lowers her posture down so her head can rest comfortably across his lap, rather than an awkward angle. Brushing a stray lock of blonde hair behind her ear, Mars speaks in a hushed, reverent whisper. Underneath the thunderous explosions of light, Mars softly confesses that whenever he stays near her, his own racing heartbeat drowns out the entire festival sound. The second male lead confession when she's asleep? Why do Oto male leads always do this when the female lead is unconscious? Classic heartbreak fuel. With a raw, vulnerable gaze, Mars mentally wonders how she would react if she knew his feelings extended far beyond childhood friendship. Looking down at her trusting, serene face, he ponders whether she could ever accept the true identity he keeps hidden behind his bandage. A lingering thought echoes in his mind, wondering what expression she would wear if his secret identity were finally laid bare before her. Unaware of his intense internal conflict, Aranel continues sleeping soundly, completely safe in his quiet embrace. Switching over to the Grand Imperial Palace, an imposing silver-haired noble with piercing red eyes turns around with an icy glare that instantly freezes the entire room. The terrified Imperial assistant bows in panic, explaining that Lady Aranel is too bogged down with commercial work to visit, only for the noble to coldly blame the servant for failing to entice her with strawberry cake and cherry sherbet. Look at this poor assistant's soul leaving his body. He's out here surviving high-stakes political intrigue, and his boss is mad over undelivered desserts. The aide glares sideways in total disbelief, completely drained by his lord's absurd obsession. Leaning back on his luxurious red velvet chair, the noble narrows his crimson eyes as he plans a brand new strategy to summon Aranel directly to his side. Shifting into a moody flashback, memory panels depict a dark, rain-drenched forest from Aranel's early childhood back in Galnum. Narrating her past, Aranel recalls foraging for wild herbs alone in the storm when she suddenly lost her footing and plummeted down a treacherous ravine. Crying silently in the cold mud with the herb basket beside her, young Aranel felt completely abandoned until mysterious glowing forms began to gather around her. Soft, luminous spirit butterflies swarmed her small frame, wrapping her in comforting heat that sustained her life through the freezing storm until Mars located her. Oh, wow, so she literally survived a hypothermia situation thanks to wild spirit butterflies? That explains her deep connection to spirit magic. Returning to present day, Aranel pulls an ancient, leather-bound volume from her late father's study. Setting down the heavy stack of research materials, she reflects on her father's legacy as a renowned spiritist who amassed vast occult knowledge. Holding the book close to her chest, she connects her childhood miracle in the rain pit to her burning passion for studying ancient spirit arts. Eagerly opening the hardcover tome, gasp, she prepares to dive deep into elemental lore. Visual magic diagrams detail the fundamental elements, fire, water, wind, and earth, explaining that while spirit talent is born, life-or-death crises can unlock hidden awakening power. Every student's worst nightmare when Chapter 1 is simple addition, but Chapter 2 drops quantum physics on your lap. Look at her brain overloading. Aranel gives a deadpan smile as complex arcane math formulas suddenly fill the page, turning simple elemental concepts into brain-melting calculus. Freaking out over the absurd difficulty leap, Aranel frantically shuffles through the bookshelf to hunt down a beginner-friendly guide instead. In the middle of searching, her gold eyes widen in shock as a hidden book catches her eye. Uncovering a spicy adult romance book, complete with a shirtless cover hunk wrapped in butterfly spirits, Aranel turns bright red, completely flabbergasted by her father's secret stash. Flipping through the embarrassing romance novel in disbelief, a folded loose note suddenly slips out from the pages and flutters onto the floorboards. Huge lore drop! A Fifth Element secret note hidden inside Dad's trashy romance novel. That is top-tier trope execution right there. Unfolding the paper, Aranel reads a mysterious warning declaring that the spirit of light is the ultimate origin required to cure the dreaded dark spot, directly contradicting standard four-element textbook lore. Before Arenal can process the shock of reading her late father's hidden note about the spirit of light, a sudden knock interrupts her thoughts as Adam calls from outside the library door, making her jump in surprise. Spinning around quickly to hide the papers behind her back, Arenal awkwardly chuckles while nervous laughed, asking Adam what brings him here so urgently. An official imperial invitation letter on high-grade gold parchment? The Emperor is definitely not playing around anymore. Adam presents a gleaming gold envelope, announcing that an official summons has just arrived directly from His Majesty the Emperor. Handing over the royal seal, Adam smiles warmly as he clarifies that the Emperor specifically requested her personal attendance at tonight's Grand Masquerade Ball. Fast-forwarding a few days later, Arenal finds herself standing inside the dazzling Imperial Palace ballroom, wearing a delicate masquerade mask and a frilly white dress. Looking around the glittering room, she squints thoughtfully, questioning why an elusive emperor who notoriously hates public gatherings would suddenly throw such an extravagant party. Noble gossips at palace balls are faster than modern 5G internet. They literally know every single piece of tea before the host even arrives. Whispering behind feather fans, nearby noble women gossip about how odd it is for His Majesty to host a ball when he never attended social events as a prince. Leaning in closer, one aristocrat ominously whispers whether this gathering might be a cover for another bloody political purge, making the surrounding ladies gasp in horror. Hearing their panicked, hushed voices, Arenal breaks into a nervous, cold sweat as visions of the ruthless, red-eyed monarch dripping in blood pop into her mind. Bro executed 3 separate purges and now expects people to enjoy free champagne and snacks at his party? Talk about extreme mood swings. As the ladies shift topics to finding eligible bachelors, a gentle voice suddenly calls out Arenal's name from behind. Turning around, Arenal recognizes Lady Allens wearing a refined silver mask with a welcoming smile. Lady Allens chuckles softly, praises Arenal's graceful posture, teasingly mentioning how much her crane dance steps have improved since their last lesson. Arenal smiles back politely, thankfulness filling her eyes before she curiously asks what the gossiping ladies meant by calling this ball a prime matchmaking opportunity. Wait, so half the women in this room are actively trying to become her stepmom? That is peak royal romance drama right there. Lady Allens leans down with a sly smirk, explaining that since the handsome 30-something emperor is single, every ambitious noblewoman is hunting to become empress and potentially Arenal's future mother-in-law. Sweating profusely beneath her disguise, Arenal internally freaks out, realizing she hasn't even adjusted to having Prince Britain as a fiancé yet, let alone dealing with competitive stepmothers. Waving her hand dismissively, Lady Allens excuses herself, noting that standing near Arenal is drawing way too much envy from those thirsty status seekers. Before slipping away into the crowd, Lady Allens leans over to drop a subtle hint, whispering that Crown Prince Britain is attending incognito wearing a sleek black mask. Look at Lady Allens getting instantly swarmed by socialites like a celebrity at a red carpet. Noble society is truly a battleground. Within seconds, eager aristocrats surround Lady Allens to solicit high society advice, leaving Arenal completely flabbergasted at how fast she got dragged away. Watching the bustling crowd, Arenal ponders how the Emperor manages to maintain immense popularity despite his ruthless tyrant reputation, suspecting his drop-dead gorgeous looks might be doing all the heavy lifting. Suddenly, a tall, polite waiter glides up beside her, offering a silver tray loaded with fresh fruit juices. Peeking up beneath her mask, Arenal's golden eyes widen in total disbelief as she locks eyes with the server. No way! The Emperor himself, disguised as a waiter serving juice? Bro really snuck into his own ball just to hang out with her. Recognizing those distinct warm eyes, Arenal nearly chokes on her breath as she identifies Uncle Zimmer disguised in a waiter's tuxedo. Quickly placing a slender finger against his lips, Zimmer utters a quiet shh sound before she can accidentally blurt out his identity in public. Flashing a charming, subtle smile, he quietly asks if she would like to step aside to a private balcony for a quick conversation. Walking out onto the moonlit terrace, Arenal beams in utter awe, eagerly questioning how he managed to perfectly copy Uncle Zimmer's exact face and brown hair color. Touching his soft brown locks, Zimmer casually reveals that drinking an alchemist's magic potion allows easy transformation of hair and eyes, though it sometimes carries weird side effects like losing one's voice. He casually flexes his muscular frame while talking about taking risky alchemical drugs. Peak male lead behavior right here. Clenching his fist with a confident grin, Zimmer reassures a terrified Aranel that his godly physical constitution completely immune checks any potion side effects. Softening his tone, he turns toward her under the starlight, sincerely offering an apology for keeping his royal identity secret during their past together in Galnum. Aranel drops her gaze, softly inquiring if he was deeply hurt during that chaotic period when they were forced apart. Flashing back to her lonely childhood room, Aranel remembers waking up alone in the dark, weeping silently under the crushing fear that her entire adoptive family had abandoned her forever. Looking back up at him with mature understanding, Aranel admits that after discovering the truth behind the political war, she completely forgives him for rushing his dangerous plans. Look at that radiant smile! She's literally a walking ray of sunshine, healing his dark trauma. Aranel brightens up with an angelic smile, letting all lingering resentment melt away in the cool night air. Staring at her luminous face, Zimmer gazes down with profound tenderness, whispering promising to make a special exception just for her happiness. Flustered by his sudden dramatic declaration, Aranel stammers out loud in cute embarrassment, complaining that he's taking things way too seriously. Tapping her chin thoughtfully, Aranel shifts the conversation, asking if he snuck into the ball under disguise because he's launching another secret imperial plot. Zimmer rubs the back of his neck awkwardly, confessing that while political motives played a small part, his main reason for wearing this specific face was actually Aranel herself. Recalling memories of harvesting fresh vegetables together in Galnum, Zimmer wistfully admits he disguised himself as Uncle Zimmer, hoping she would feel comfortable enough to open her heart to him again after avoiding the palace. She's out here waving her arms frantically like a little bird, trying to prove she wasn't ghosting the Emperor. Adorable defense maneuver. Panic waving her hands, Aranel sweatingly stammers that she wasn't avoiding him on purpose, swearing she was just completely buried under commercial paperwork. Looking around at the beautiful venue, Aranel warmly comments on how tasty the masquerade food is, expressing genuine joy at seeing Uncle Zimmer's familiar face again. Blushing slightly at her sudden praise, Zimmer looks down with wide, hopeful eyes, softly asking if she truly enjoys his presence like this. In a tender impulse, Zimmer gently takes her small hand into his broad palm, softly holding it with utmost care. Looking down into her golden eyes, Zimmer solemnly promises that no matter what disguise or title he wears, he will always remain her protective family. Flashing a bright, comforting smile, he invites her to unload whatever worries are weighing on her mind tonight, offering to listen purely as Uncle Zimmer. Touched by his unconditional support, Aranel cups her blushing cheek, feeling a deep wave of emotional comfort wash over her heart. Hold on! Who is that shadowy figure lurking in the trees outside? The ambient tension just shot through the roof. Switching to the dark woods surrounding the palace, a sinister assassin shrouded in a black hood silently stalks the balcony from the shadows. Tightening his leather-gloved grip around a deadly steel knife, whispers the hidden killer prepares to strike at his royal target. Unaware of the lurking threat in the dark forest below, the full moon shines peacefully over the quiet palace estate. Pumping his fist with playful enthusiasm, Zimmer proudly declares that if any snobbish noble attempts to bother her, she must inform him immediately so he can crush them. Laughing lightheartedly, Aranel waves her hand dismissively, giggling that no sane aristocrat would ever waste time picking a fight with an innocent child like her. Turning around to head back inside, Aranel pushes open the glass patio door. Gasp! Only for Zimmer to suddenly call out her name behind her. Zimmer smiles warmly beneath his disguise, tenderly asking Aranel to promise she will visit him often, just like she used to back in the day. Looking back up at him with bright eyes beneath her delicate mask, Aranel beams happily before softly answering, "Yes." Turning around to re-enter the grand ballroom, Aranel walks with a light heart, thinking to herself that for a brief moment, it felt as though she'd returned to her peaceful days in Galnem. She is literally living her best life, getting pampered by royalty while everyone else at this ball is stressing over political survival. A sweet smile remains on her face as she gracefully steps past the towering marble pillars. Suddenly, her golden eyes spot a red-haired noblewoman in an elegant black gown, whispering in the shadows behind a pillar, covertly telling her companion that they urgently need to find a solution to their problem. Leaning against the wall, the aristocratic lady continues complaining in hushed tones, declaring that His Majesty pushes everything through his own way and things have gotten drastically worse ever since that Mela girl arrived. Hearing her own family name, Aranel stops dead in her tracks, blinking in complete surprise as she wonders if these secretive aristocrats are actually gossiping about her. Dropping major political secrets right next to an open hallway? Imperial noble conspirators really need better security training. The masked nobleman beside her panic shushes her, warning Lady Margaret to lower her voice before someone overhears, reminding her that his family lost all their imperial connections after their allies got purged. The nobleman nervously adds that he understands her impatience, but warns her not to get involved, reminding her of the ruthless imperial purges that left the halls drenched in blood. He ominously mentions the cursed dark spot of the Azlet imperial bloodline. Aranel gasps silently, recalling the mysterious note she read earlier, stating that only a light spirit summoner possesses the power to cure the imperial dark spot. Determined to uncover the full truth behind these dark imperial secrets, Aranel decides to tiptoe closer to eavesdrop on their private conversation. Bro, the classic anime collision trope strikes again. She tried to play spy and immediately ran full speed into a villain. Suddenly, bump! Aranel accidentally crashes right into the red-haired noble girl. Stumbling backward from the impact, Aranel winces in embarrassment as the disgruntled noblewoman turns around with a scowl. Glaring down at Aranel with utter contempt, the spoiled heiress scoffs loudly, insulting Aranel's tacky straw-colored hair and bright green eyes. Clenching her fists in disgust, the arrogant noble girl continues her cruel critique, mocking Aranel's hands for being as rough as coarse sandpaper. Look at this mean girl flexing her manicured hands like she accomplished something in life. Somebody hand her a trophy for being born rich. The red-haired girl giggles condescendingly behind her purple mask, mocking Aranel by sneering that she looks like she just crawled straight out of the unrefined countryside while her lackeys chuckle along. Squinting her eyes thoughtfully, Aranel squints back, inwardly thinking that this annoying, high-pitched voice sounds ridiculously familiar. Flipping open her sleek black feather fan with a dramatic snap, the spoiled lady sneers arrogantly, allowing Aranel to finally recognize her as Lady Machert. Inspecting Aranel's simple white attire, Lady Machert mockingly questions if her mask was forged out of a rusty horseshoe by a local village blacksmith. Scoffs. Oh snap, Aranel just dropped a savage clapback without even raising her voice. Peak comeback energy right here. Completely unfazed by the insults, Aranel calmly retorts that too much ornament is worse than too little, adding that a horseshoe mask is far superior to cheap taste. Aranel throws total shade, roasting Lady Machert by comparing her disguise to a uselessly flashy purple boomerang, leaving the noble girl screeching in utter disbelief. What? Flustered and burning with rage, Lady Machert raises her wooden fan high in the air, screaming that a tacky country girl needs to be put in her place right now. Suddenly, a firm hand grabs Lady Machert's wrist mid-swing as a cold, authoritative, boyish voice commands her to stop. The fiancé enters the chat? The dramatic protection trope never gets old in historical romance manhwas. A golden eye glare reveals a sharp-looking young boy stepping up to intercept the attack. The young noble boy glares down with dark brown eyes beneath his mask, standing firmly between Aranel and her attacker. Revealing his striking silver hair and piercing blue eyes beneath his dark mask, Aranel gasps and total shock, recognizing him immediately as Prince Britain. Britain sternly scolds Lady Machert, declaring that raising a hand against another guest at an imperial ball is outrageously ill-mannered, making the red-haired girl freeze in total panic as she stammers, Your Highness, the Crown Prince? Look at her instantly shifting into victim mode the second authority shows up. Typical noble bully behavior. Trying to wriggle out of trouble, Lady Machert dramatically clutched her chest, whining that she was the real victim because Aranel bumped into her and made her drop her fan. Britain fixes her with an ice-cold glare, dark aura swirling around his small frame as he coldly warns that anyone who dares mistreat his fiancé will deeply regret it. Britain coldly adds that she should consider herself lucky he didn't recognize her behind her disguise, leaving Lady Machert trembling in complete terror. Overwhelmed by embarrassment and threat of punishment, Lady Machert bursts into tears, crying out that the Crown Prince is cruel before sprinting away into the hallway with her terrified friends chasing after her. He really thought she was the main character until the Crown Prince dropped the fiancé card, absolutely destroyed in public. Turning toward Aranel with a gentler expression, Britain checks if she's all right, to which Aranel offers a sweet smile, assuring him that she is completely fine. In a hilariously smug chibi thought bubble, Aranel internally boasts that Lady Margaret couldn't have pushed her over anyway, considering her body was built rock solid from years of hard farm labor in Galnum. Leaning in close to her ear, Britain whispers quietly that there are far too many gossiping eyes on them right now, asking if she would like to step out into the private garden for a peaceful stroll. Looking around the grand hall, Arenal notices the surrounding aristocrats whispering in hushed curiosity as the dramatic scene draws an eager crowd. Wanting to escape the prying eyes of high society, Arenal readily agrees, letting Britain take her hand as he leads her away toward the moonlit royal gardens. Kids in manhwas talk like 40-year-old politicians undergoing midlife crises. Can someone give these children a video game or a toy? Walking along the serene garden path beside the sparkling lake, Arenal curiously asks Britain if he's okay, noting that she thought he was friendly with Lady Mackert and that the girl seemed genuinely betrayed back there. Britain answers with cold indifference, stating that his connection to Lady Mackert is no different from any other noble, deadpan, strictly a relationship of sovereign and subject, where overstepping boundaries requires strict authority. But pausing under the moonlight, Britain stops walking, his profile illuminated by the glowing water as he hesitates with a quiet but whoa, that yandere smile just gave me actual chills. Prince Britain is definitely his father's son. Turning his head with a chillingly sweet smile, Britain softly promises that if Lady Mackert ever bothers her again, he will personally ensure she is permanently dealt with, leaving Arenal breaking into a cold sweat over his dark tone. Arenal inwardly sweats, wondering if Britain was always this terrifyingly ruthless behind his polite exterior, completely unaware of dark silhouettes shifting beneath the garden pond. No way! Assassins in the royal pond? They literally swam through the palace moat just to jump the crown prince. Emerging silently from the dark blue water, 3 hooded assassins wearing black face masks lock their eyes onto the unsuspecting children. Britain's sharp blue eyes catch a sudden reflection in the water, his expression instantly shifting into total combat readiness. Before the hitman can strike, a hidden Imperial guard shouts out in desperation, "Watch out, my lady!" as Britain instinctively moves to protect Arenal. The lead assassin leaps from the shadows with a sharp blade drawn, shouting "Assailants!" before recognizing Britain's silver hair and blue eyes, commanding his squad to seize the crown prince immediately. This kid is actually stepping up to fight adult assassins with his bare hands? That is pure braveness right there. Britain firmly pushes Arenal behind his back, yelling at her to run and escape while he draws the enemy's attention. Britain fiercely commands her to flee without looking back, swearing that he will buy as much time as he possibly can. Refusing to abandon her young fiancé in a life-or-death situation, Arenal shouts back with fierce conviction, "I can't do that!" Panic rushes through Arenal's chest as she realizes Britain is still just a young child, wondering how she could ever live with herself if she left him to die, when suddenly, heavy boots land right behind them as an assassin coldly growls, "Where do you think you're going?" The assassins are too fast! They completely encircled the terrace before the kids could even take 5 steps. Terrified by the killer's unbelievable speed, Arenal panics, realizing these high-level hitmen are specifically targeting Britain's imperial bloodline right inside the palace grounds. Pouncing through the moonlit shadows, the lead hitman leaps high into the air with his blade raised high, roaring that he will kill them with his own hands, while a desperate guard screams from the bushes, "It's dangerous, my lady!" Cornered against the terrace wall with nowhere to run, Arenal's eyes dilate in total horror as the cold steel reflects in her eyes, crying out in sheer panic, "No!" Clenching her trembling hands into tight fists, Arenal inwardly refuses to surrender, fiercely declaring that she still has so much work to do to rebuild her marquisate and hasn't even begun to enjoy her new life, vowing with everything she has, "I can't die here." Oh, here it comes! The classic anime life flashing before your eyes flashback right before the MC unlocks her cheat codes. Flashback memories suddenly echo in her mind as a gentle voice asks what kind of book she was reading so intently back at the estate. In her memory, young Arenal turns toward her mentor in the vast library, explaining that she was researching spirits out of curiosity, after learning her late father was once an extraordinary spirit summoner. Smiling softly, the kindly butler chuckles warm-heartedly, reminding her that the Marquis was indeed a legendary spirit summoner, and adding that spirit powers often lie dormant until manifesting unexpectedly late in life. Glowing spirit runes begin swirling around her mental vision as her mentor's parting words ring aloud, promising that perhaps she too inherited that same extraordinary talent. Bursting with blinding golden light, radiant spirit energy erupts from Arenelle's palms as she thrusts her hands forward, screaming, "Get away!" The massive elemental shockwave hurls all three adult assassins flying backward into the sky like ragdolls, crashing violently into distant tree trunks as they scream in utter shock, "Rah!" As golden embers drift lazily through the night air, Arenelle stands with her arms outstretched, leaving Prince Britain staring at her with wide, starstruck blue eyes as he stammers in shock. My lady? Girl blew 3 fully trained hitmen into next week, and now she's hyperventilating like she just ran a marathon. Adorable. Panting heavily, Arenelle stares down at her trembling hands in total disbelief, completely breathless from the sudden surge of raw magic. Replaying the catastrophic blast from another angle, the overwhelming wave of spirit light had utterly obliterated the hitman's ambush in a single split-second burst. Looking down at her palms in absolute awe, squints thoughtfully, Arenelle internally questions what on earth just happened and where that explosive power came from. Staring at her fingers with wide eyes, she whispers to herself in complete disbelief, wondering if she truly just summoned spirit magic all on her own. Groaning in pain as he crawls out from the bushes, the bruised lead assassin wipes blood from his mouth, gritting his teeth as he realizes she's a spiritist and growling that he must execute this girl first. Classic Prince behavior. Little man is ready to play human shield again even after she just nuked the forest. Seeing the killer struggle back to his feet, Britain grabs Arenelle's shoulders in a panic, urging her to escape immediately, but Arenelle stubbornly clutches his collar, shouting back that she could never abandon her fiancé. Suddenly, a terrifying metallic footsteps echo across the stone path, freezing both children in their tracks. Looking over his shoulder toward the dark woods, Britain desperately hopes they can reach the inner castle where palace guards can protect them, completely unaware of the massive shadow looming right behind them. The loud clanking of heavy iron armor grows deafening, forcing Arenelle and Britain to huddle together as they gasp in terror. What is that now? Bro, a whole final boss just dropped into the garden. Look at that insane aura. Crackling with overwhelming blue mana, a colossal knight clad in full plate armor steps into the moonlight, holding a massive broadsword. Arenelle panics internally, realizing someone infinitely more dangerous than the assassins just arrived. Trembling behind Britain's small frame, Arenelle breaks into a cold sweat, thinking that those 3 assassins were already nearly impossible to deal with. Glaring up at the giant armored figure, Arenelle despairs in total dread, wondering how on earth 2 young kids could possibly survive facing a titan like him. The towering knight takes another heavy step forward, making Arenelle realize that running away from this monster is completely impossible, when suddenly a deep voice speaks softly beneath the helm. You've arrived. Confused by the unexpected greeting, Arenelle blinks in confusion, wondering if this terrifying giant actually knows Britain, especially when the knight adds that he's glad he isn't late. Hearing his distinct voice, Arenelle gasps in total shock. A sudden memory flashes in Arenelle's mind, recalling her dark-skinned, bearded farm mentor, Uncle Panel, chuckling warmly back in Galnum about learning tactical references. Inspecting the massive knight's sturdy build and glowing yellow eyes visible through his visor, Arenelle connects the dots, recognizing that voice and posture instantly. Staring up in disbelief, Arenelle timidly calls out, "Uncle Panel?" making the giant armored knight pause before smirking softly beneath his steel visor. Of course, the friendly farm uncle is actually a top-tier legendary general in full battle gear. The trope never fails. Throwing his head back, Uncle Panel bursts into boisterous laughter, praising Arenelle for recognizing him instantly and declaring that she definitely possesses the sharp mind of a great military strategist. A glowing phantom image of Uncle Panel's friendly, unarmored face appears beside his steel helm as he smiles warmly down at her, greeting Arenelle after so long. Beaming with sheer joy and relief, Arenelle's eyes sparkle bright yellow as she cheers with a wide smile, ecstatic to realize their terrifying intruder isn't an enemy at all. Recognizing the terrifying suit of armor, the bruised hitmen stumble backward in sheer terror, trembling as they stammer, "That appearance, it's the blue-blooded devil!" Dramatic text banners flare as his legendary title is revealed, the Minister of Military Affairs, Pamel Germont. Look at Chibi Arenelle doing a little victory dance, from total annihilation to instant victory in 5 seconds flat. In a hilariously cute Chibi celebration, Arenelle pump cheers in delight, utterly thrilled that their secret savior is the strongest man in the Empire. Recalling her original novel notes, Arenelle remembers writing down crucial details about the Empire's power structure, including the formidable Minister of Military Affairs.
Visualizing the original lore, the Germont dukedom has led the Empire's armies for generations, headed by a ruthless god of war so terrifying that merely meeting his gaze strikes absolute fear, earning him the fearsome title, Blue-Blooded Devil. Sweat dropping in total shock, Arenelle internally freaks out, realizing her humble farm uncle was secretly the most feared general in high society all along. Uncle Panel gently pats her shoulder with his massive steel gauntlet, reassuring her to leave the rest to him. Turning toward the hitman, Panel's yellow eyes flash with a deadly, murderous glare beneath his helmet, causing the remaining assassins to gasp and freeze in total panic. Swishing his giant broadsword through the air with terrifying speed, Panel growls with cold contempt, calling the attackers worthless trash left over from the Second Prince's faction. Glaring down at the cornered killers, Panel's voice drops to a chilling bass, demanding how dirty traitors dare lay a single finger on his rightful successor in the Crown Prince. The artist literally didn't even show the fight because it was an absolute slaughterhouse. Rip to those hitmen. Off-screen beatdown sound effects ring out as the hitmen scream in utter agony, "Arg! Ah, spare me!" before being completely pulverized. Sparkles and shoujo flowers dramatically surround Panel as he stands tall in his blood-splattered armor, looking absurdly majestic after effortlessly sweeping the floor with adult killers. Calmly wiping his bloodied blade, Panel remarks with indifference that he will have the palace guards drag the bodies down to the dungeons, though he doubts any of them are still breathing. Prince Britain offers a respectful bow with a sweet smile, saying, "Thank you, master," leaving Arenelle gasped in total shock as she realizes Britain has been studying swordsmanship directly under Uncle Panel. Britain politely requests that Panel keep tonight's assassination attempt secret from the public to avoid panic, warning that traitorous remnants might still lurk inside the ballroom. Panel scoffs, promising that anyone who crosses his iron whip will suffer his ultimate wrath. Look at this giant war machine face-palming in full-plate armor. The comedic timing in this manhwa is top tier. Slapping his steel gauntlet over his helmet in dramatic frustration, Panel groans over the sheer incompetence of the palace security. Removing his heavy helmet to reveal his warm, handsome smile, Panel chuckles warmly, telling Arenelle how genuinely happy he is to see her again. Smiling brightly back at him, Arenelle admits that she always suspected he was far too ridiculously buff to be a simple country farmer, though she never imagined he was the Minister of Military Affairs himself. Floating in a funny chibi bubble, Uncle Panel winks playfully, asking with a hearty laugh if she was really that surprised by his true identity. Explaining his prestigious lineage, Panel proudly shares that the Germont dukedom has served as the ultimate warlords for the Azlet imperial family for generations. Panel adds with a warm smile that he personally accompanied His Majesty the Emperor to Gaunum disguised as a humble villager, purely to serve as his secretive personal bodyguard. Processing Panel's overwhelming reveal, Arenelle's mouth hangs open in utter shock as she softly mutters, "I see." Everything suddenly clicks into place. The humble village of Gaunum wasn't just a quiet countryside retreat, but an elite hidden stronghold housing the Emperor, the Minister of Military Affairs, and the Minister of the Palace. Imagine finding out your local neighborhood retirees are actually the top 3 rulers of the entire military and government. That's next-level witness protection. As the full gravity of this truth dawns on her, Arenelle realizes that every single villager she grew up around was secretly a powerhouse titan. Curiosity burning within her, Arenelle turns back toward the towering knight, timidly inquiring if any other villagers from Gaunum are currently attending the ball. Pommel pauses in his massive armor, looking down in complete confusion as he grunts, "Huh? What do you mean by that?" Clenching his massive steel gauntlets together with a loud metallic clank, the general cocks his head while listening to her question about the former villagers. Pamel really threw a full dramatic pose with Sparkles in full plate armor just to stake his claim. The vanity is unreal. Suddenly striking an overly majestic pose covered in glowing sparkles, Pamel dramatically bellows that in the end, only he, Pamel Germont, shall stand victorious. A tiny chibi Arenelle blinks blankly with floating question marks, wondering what on earth he's babbling about. Rubbing her chin thoughtfully, Arenelle connects the dots, realizing that since Pamel explicitly referred to Britain as his successor, it means several other high-ranking imperial nobles must also be hiding among their former Gaunum neighbors. Stepping forward with total composure, Prince Britain politely bows to his master, suggesting that he escort Arenelle back inside the ballroom where strictly verified guests are safe from outside threats. Pommel nods approvingly, giving his full consent. Britain promises to double-check the credentials of everyone inside the hall, while Pamel agrees to maintain a strict watch around the castle perimeter. Going from terrifying war demon to gentle father figure in 5 seconds flat, Palmel's wholesome smile is top tier. Removing his terrifying demeanor, Palmel flashes a warm, fatherly smile, gently telling Arenal to head inside and rest after such a terrifying ordeal. Beaming with relief, Arenal happily bids him farewell, catching herself before calling him Uncle Pamel and politely addressing him as Duke Pamel instead as Britain leads her away. Slipping back into the castle corridors, Britain adjusts his dark masquerade mask, reminding Arenal to stay safely inside the ball while he investigates the remaining security risks. Offering a cute, reassuring smile behind her white lace mask, Arenal nods sweetly, wishing His Highness safe travels as he heads off. Watching Britain's back vanish down the dim hallway, Arenal finds herself left all alone in the quiet corridor. Defeated assassins, escaped murderers, saved the crown prince, and her primary concern right after is finding a snack. Relatable queen behavior. Suddenly, her stomach lets out a massive roar of hunger, making Arenal sweat drop in embarrassment as she realizes the sudden adrenaline crash has left her completely famished. She resolves to head straight toward the dessert buffet, but before she can take a single step, horrified screams echo down the corridor, screaming, "Kya!" Panicked shouts ring across the castle walls as people scream about a massive fire breaking out inside. Arenal gasps in shock, her eyes widening in total alarm. Massive infernos erupt in the background as frantic voices yell out, desperately calling for water buckets as the roaring fire rapidly spreads through the service quarters. Watching terrified masked noblewomen cough and cover their faces from the rising smoke, Arenal stands frozen in despair, realizing that right after an assassin ambush, a sudden fire has thrown the palace into absolute chaos. Look at that intense orange lighting reflecting in her eyes. The artist really pulled out all the stops for this crisis. Flickering embers reflect off her large golden eyes as Arenal swallows hard, trying to process the sheer madness sweeping through the royal grounds. Standing amidst the growing panic, Arenal clutches her chest in utter bewilderment, desperately wondering what kind of insane disaster is going to strike next. Fortunately, the flames are quickly contained, leaving burnt wooden beams smoldering on the stone floor. Arenal eavesdrops on nearby maids who nervously whisper that the entire imperial kitchen was completely charred. Approaching one of the panicked servants, Arenal politely asks if the situation is under control, and the maid turns around startled, confirming that while the fire was put out, the damage is severe. High above the grand hall, the dazzling crystal chandelier glistens silently, completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding in the backrooms. Are you telling me this entire castle-wide emergency was caused by two spoiled rich kids playing with illegal fireworks behind the kitchen? Unbelievable! The maid exasperatedly reveals that two young noble kids were secretly playing with fire behind the kitchen and set the whole pantry ablaze, destroying all the rare caramel fruits reserved for the ball's mandatory dessert sherbet. Sinking into total despair, the servant laments that by imperial tradition, serving sherbet at the end of the ball is strictly required, but with all their ingredients destroyed, the head chefs are facing certain execution. Arenal rests her chin on her hand, her mind racing as she realizes how dire the situation is for the imperial culinary staff. Excusing herself from the maids, Arenal turns around with a determined glint in her eye, leaving the servants looking after her in utter confusion. Marching straight into the smoking imperial kitchen, Arenal listens as the head chef screams in complete panic, furious that all their backup fruit was ruined by the intense heat and fearing their heads will literally roll. Post commentary? Removing the mask in a room full of panicked chefs, she's about to step in like a culinary superhero. Two chefs hold each other in sheer despair, completely clueless on how to save themselves, until Arenal dramatically unslips her masquerade mask. Hearing a soft voice behind them, the chief cook turns around in total shock, gasping as he catches sight of the young noble lady standing in his burnt kitchen. Holding her mask with a radiant, confident smile surrounded by sparkling light, Arenal brightly announces that she has a brilliant plan to save their lives and asks if they're willing to listen. Stuttering in total panic, shaky voice, the chefs bow nervously, desperate voice, pleading with Lady Mila to leave immediately since the ruined kitchen is far too dangerous for a high-born young lady. Inner monologue flashing across her mind, Arenal's golden eyes narrow with sharp business acumen, realizing this catastrophe is the ultimate golden opportunity to introduce her secret recipe to the entire high society. Flashing her most innocent smile, Arenal calmly asks the chefs if they're in a pinch, revealing that she possesses a unique set of premium ingredients that can create an unforgettable sherbet. Look at those two chefs looking like they just saw a messiah descending from heaven. Their eyes are practically popping out. The chefs freeze in utter disbelief, shouting in sheer desperation as they ask if her unbelievable claim is actually true. Confident in her plan, Arenal winks playfully, reassuring them that everyone will adore her special recipe and promising to immediately contact the Marquisate to deliver the fresh stock right away. Transitioning back to the grand ballroom, music fills the air as masked aristocrats mingle and gossip while waiting for the grand finale of the evening. Trays of glowing, vibrant pink sherbet in elegant crystal glasses are served to every table as the guests begin removing their masquerade masks in preparation for the ball's conclusion. A young lord holding his pink drink squints in confusion, remarking to his partner that this definitely isn't the traditional Cramule sherbet they announced earlier. Taking a small spoonful, a noblewoman's eyes widen in absolute astonishment as the heavenly taste hits her palate, making her murmur that this unbelievable flavor feels intimately familiar. She recognized the taste instantly. Arenal's tea party dessert from earlier just went viral across the entire empire. Scanning the room, her gaze lands on Aunt Pilot across the hall, who gracefully sips her exact same glowing pink dessert with a knowing smile. Flash text banners flare in total shock as the noble lady suddenly recognizes the legendary dish, realizing this is the iconic secret sherbet from Lady Allance's exclusive tea party. Gasping in total excitement, the lady raves to the surrounding crowd about how everyone at the private gathering went completely wild over this delicious treat. Savoring every single bite, aristocrats across the ballroom close their eyes in pure euphoria, blushing in bliss as the sweet, refreshing flavor completely captivates their senses. Watching from the shadows of the hall, the two imperial chefs wipe cold sweat from their brows, completely stunned that a children's dessert saved their necks from the executioner's block. Aunt Piola getting swarmed like a pop star at a concert just because of a bowl of sherbet? High society politics is wild. A crowd of eager noblewomen immediately swarms Aunt Piola, frantically demanding to know where this heavenly recipe came from and begging her to reveal the secret ingredients. Smirking cunningly beneath her ornate mask, Aunt Piolette thoroughly enjoys the intense dramatic spotlight before delivering her answer. With a gentle, proud smile, the minister of the palace chuckles softly, announcing to the entire crowd that the brilliant mind behind this masterpiece isn't her, but her prized disciple. Standing gracefully in the center of the hall, Arenal holds her shimmering pink sherbet glass with a victorious, angelic smile as glowing sparkles surround her, officially taking high society by storm. Whispers ripple through the aristocratic crowd as guests stare in total shock, wondering how on earth a girl from the countryside could craft a dessert with such an insanely sophisticated taste. Arenal stands calmly as the nobles whisper in disbelief, confirming that the rumors are indeed true. Sparkling light shines behind a grand announcement text, declaring that Lady Arenal herself is the sole mastermind who personally created this extraordinary sweet creation. Beaming with total delight, Arenal holds up her glowing pink sherbet glass, savoring every sweet spoonful while bathed in radiant golden sparkles. Look at these snobbish aristocrats suddenly throwing open their coin purses. A minute ago they were looking down on her, and now they're begging to hand over blank checks. Two wealthy aristocrats step forward in total eagerness, desperately offering to pay any amount of gold if she'll just reveal the secret recipe. Glowing golden eyes narrow slyly as Arenal flashes a cheeky, villainous smirk, realizing she has high society completely wrapped around her little finger. Dropping the massive bombshell, Arenal casually reveals that her secret recipe is made entirely out of red sugar beet. The surrounding lord and lady freeze in utter bewilderment, gaping like fish as they stutter out, "Pardon?" in total confusion. Screaming in complete disbelief, the noblewoman frantically accuses Arenal of lying, insisting that red sugar beet is far too bitter to even cultivate, only for the imperial chef to step up and confirm that the young lady speaks the truth. Standing tall and proud in their crisp white uniforms, the two imperial kitchen chefs proudly declare to the ballroom that every single glass of sherbet served tonight was indeed crafted from red sugar beets. Livestock food? Oh, high society is about to have a total meltdown over eating humble farm crops. Shock chatter explodes across the hall as aristocrats panic among themselves, protesting that no matter how heavenly it tastes, sugar beets are strictly meant for farm animals. Stepping into the spotlight with total elegance, Aunt Piolet raises her voice, declaring that true fine cuisine isn't defined by fancy ingredients, but by the sheer genius of the chef, admitting even she was blown away by Arenel's skill. Listening to the minister of the palace, the masked nobles instantly change their tone, covering their mouths in amazement as they realize a humble crop was transformed into pure perfection. Gracefully sipping her pink dessert behind her silver masquerade mask, Aunt Piolet offers a proud, satisfied smile as the hall falls dead silent under her commanding aura. Raising her crystal glass high toward the chandelier, Aunt Piolet boldly announces a grand toast to mark the dawn of a brand new era in imperial gastronomy. Piolet's authority is unmatched. She took a room full of snobs and turned a beet sherbet into a historic political moment. Standing gracefully in the center of the silent hall, Aunt Piolet holds her glass high while every single noble hangs onto her every word in breathless awe. Clinking their crystal goblets together in unison, the entire ballroom joins in an enthusiastic toast, officially accepting the revolutionizing dessert. Internal monologue banners flare up with joy as Arenel celebrates her lucky break, immensely relieved that she had the foresight to stock up on piles of red sugar beet roots. Savoring another tasty spoonful, Arenel cleverly notes that while snobbish nobles might hesitate at first, having Lady Allance's public endorsement will guarantee massive success. Bold text flares in her mind, declaring with ultimate confidence that this sugar beet sherbet will inevitably dominate the entire fashion and culinary trend of Albion high society. Look at Prince Britain in the background, watching her like a proud husband. He knows she's a financial genius. Giggling with satisfaction, Arenel whispers a silent victory shout, completely oblivious to the handsome prince standing nearby who gazes at her with a soft, affectionate smirk. With his dark masquerade mask removed, Prince Britain looks over at Arenel with a warm, gentle smile, clearly admiring her incredible brilliance and resourcefulness. Meanwhile, in the dark corner of the room, a spoiled, red-haired noble girl wearing a purple mask fumes with toxic jealousy, venomously muttering that a mere country bumpkin shouldn't be hogging the spotlight. Shadows wrap heavily around Prince Britain's face as his brown eyes narrow into a cold, terrifying glare toward the jealous noble girl's harsh insults. Noticing the attendant's chilly gaze, the red-haired girl snaps furiously, sparking with rage as she demands to know why a lowly servant dares to look at her like that. Pointing her finger aggressively at the disguised emperor, she shouts in sheer anger, offended that he dared to call her hateful complaints highly irritating. Oh girl, you are digging your own grave. Yelling at the hidden emperor in a masquerade hall is the ultimate mistake. Fuming with arrogant pride, the girl sneers in contempt, demanding if a lowly attendant has any idea who her powerful noble family is to speak to her with such disrespect. Reaching out with a calm, swift move, the disguised emperor dodges as the furious girl violently knocks over a tray of pink sherbet. The crystal glass shatters violently onto the floor, spilling glowing pink sherbet everywhere as the spoiled girl screams in outrage that such cheap food is only fit for filthy beasts. Standing amidst the broken glass, the disguised emperor gazes down at her with an icy, terrifying expression that radiates absolute murder. Terrified gasps ring across the entire ballroom as nearby aristocrats turn around in shock, staring at the chaotic scene unfolding near the back tables. Rushing to the scene in sheer panic, a high-ranking red-haired nobleman and his wife demand to know what happened as their daughter L'Oreal wildly complains about the insolent attendant. The exact second he saw those glowing red eyes beneath the mask, his soul literally left his body. Look at that cold sweat. As L'Oreal's father steps up angrily to confront the servant, the disguised emperor slightly lifts his mask, revealing crimson red eyes that instantly freeze the father in sheer horror. Dropping straight to his knees in utter panic, the father forcibly grabs L'Oreal's head and slams her into a deep bow, desperately begging His Majesty for mercy for their unforgivable sin. Pushing his confused daughter's head firmly toward the floor, the father hysterically whispers for her to shut her mouth immediately if she doesn't want their entire family executed on the spot. Sweating in cold horror, L'Oreal's eyes widen in absolute terror as she finally realizes that the lowly attendant she just insulted is actually the supreme emperor himself. Illusion magic melts away as silver white hair shines under the light, and Emperor Pamel casually picks up a sharp shard of broken glass from the floor. Crouching down with a cold, terrifying smile, Emperor Pommel twirls the glass shard, softly stating that while he can overlook personal insults, disrespecting Arenel's red sugar beet sherbet is completely unforgivable. Cares more about someone insulting his future daughter-in-law's dessert than someone insulting him. Pamel's priorities are hilarious. Trembling violently beneath her father's hand, Lario feels a wave of pure dread wash over her as horrified murmurs echo throughout the silent ballroom. Bowing so low his nose nearly touches the carpet, Duke Mackert removes his mask in deep shame, crying out that he takes full responsibility as a failure of a father and pleading for royal mercy. Crossing her arms with total composure, Arenelle watches the dramatic spectacle unfold, her golden eyes analyzing the situation with sharp focus. In her thoughts racing, Arenelle calmly reflects that L'Oreal's arrogant habit of looking down on others was always bound to bring her down eventually, as Emperor Pamel turns to glance at her with a smirk. Floating thought captions hover above as Emperor Pamel playfully mouths to Arenelle, asking his chosen daughter-in-law what punishment he should hand out to the family. Passing the judgment baton to a little girl, Pamel really treats Arenelle like the supreme boss of the empire. Arenelle's sweat drops in sheer pressure, stunned that the emperor of the entire realm is genuinely leaving the diplomatic fate of a noble house in her hands. Quick thinking as always, Arenelle recalls that Duke Mackert is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, one of the 4 key ministers leading the empire, realizing this crisis can be flipped into a massive business advantage. Stepping forward, light on her feet, Arenelle politely approaches Emperor Pamel, asking if she may whisper a brilliant suggestion into His Majesty's ear. Leaning up on her tiptoes, Arenelle softly whispers her secret proposal into Pamel's ear, while Duke Mackert and his daughter watch in breathless suspense. Grinning with immense pleasure, Emperor Pamel chuckles, softly praising Arenelle for proving once again why she is truly worthy of becoming his future daughter-in-law before delivering the final verdict. Turning his cold red eyes toward the trembling red-haired girl, Emperor Pamel solemnly declares her official punishment to the entire room. Banished from the imperial palace forever? In high society terms, that girl's social life just got hit with a nuclear missile. Narrative text boxes reveal that following that fateful night, Lady Mackert was permanently banned from ever setting foot inside the imperial palace again. Crying bitter tears of disgrace as she climbs into her horse carriage, L'Oreal is effectively exiled from high society, a devastating punishment that ensures she will stay completely quiet for a long time while Arenelle watches from afar. Flashback text banners reveal Arenelle's genius scheme. She persuaded the emperor to use the sugar beet hype to introduce the affordable root crop across the realm, laying the groundwork to completely prevent the upcoming Great Famine. Exhausted from another chaotic night of high society drama, Arenelle collapses onto the plush velvet couch with that long sigh as her body completely melts into the cushions. Closing her eyes against the dimming candlelight, her weary mind drifts away as she softly reminds herself that a long night's rest is non-negotiable. Meanwhile, deep in the cold stone dungeons beneath the palace, blood-curdling screams tear through the iron bars. Evil smile as Emperor Pamel sits completely unbothered, his crimson eyes gleaming softly in the dark shadows. Pamel running an interrogation like a casual Sunday afternoon tea party is wild. The man doesn't even need to raise his voice to make people lose their minds. A heavy iron brand sizzles against raw flesh as the bound prisoner thrashes wildly against his ropes, crying out in sheer agony until Pamel calmly signals for the torturer to hold back. Glaring up from the damp floor, the battered assassin spits blood, venomously cursing Pamel as a monster and a filthy devil who deserves to burn in hell. Pamel's cold red eyes narrow in quiet contemplation as the assassin maniacally screams that he should have finished him off in that back alley years ago if that cursed Mila hadn't intervened. Standing up with effortless grace, Pamel gazes down at his captive, his icy voice echoing off the stone walls as he connects the dots and realizes this fool is a surviving rat from that past betrayal. That sinister smirk on Pamel's face says it all. This assassin thought he was going to provoke him, but he just signed up for an extended stay in hell. A dark, terrifying smile spreads across Pamel's pale face as he murmurs that today's interrogation is suddenly turning out to be much more entertaining than he anticipated. Shadows loom heavily over the cell as Pamel leans in close, promising in a bone-chilling whisper that he will make every single second of the assassin's remaining life feel like endless torture. Laughing hysterically through his bloody teeth, the assassin snaps back that no amount of agony will break him, declaring his only true regret was failing to tear Pamela apart, just like they destroyed that spirit arts user back then. Unshaken by the psychotic outburst, Pamela coldly tilts his head, casually telling the prisoner that he looks forward to testing just how long that bravado actually lasts. Turning his back to the cell door, Pamela gives a faint flick of his wrist, quietly ordering the armored guard to resume the harsh punishment. You know you messed up when the Emperor walks away from your torturing session with the serenity of a monk taking a garden stroll. Deafening shrieks of agony once again echo down the stone corridor behind him as Pamela casually exits the dungeon without looking back a single time. In the quiet hallway, Pamela's crimson gaze turns dark and heavy as the assassin's final words about the past spirit arts user weigh heavily on his mind. Flashback memories resurface as horse hooves thunder through a pitch-black forest, repeating the names of forgotten allies into the night mist. Suddenly, a volley of deadly glowing arrows rains down from the night sky as hidden snipers release their bowstrings in a coordinated ambush. Ducking low over his galloping stallion, the royal guard desperately screams for the young prince to dodge, warning that every single arrowhead is coated in lethal venom. Slamming his heavy iron greave into the stirrups, the loyal guard maneuvers his horse into position to form a human wall. Raising a massive steel tower shield, but Knight takes the full brunt of the deadly arrow barrage, metallic clangs echoing violently off the armor plate. Look at that loyal guard taking a full barrage of poisoned arrows just to clear a path. Pure cinematic heroism right here. Spurring his horse forward through the ambush zone, the Knight glances back at the young prince, shouting for him to ride as fast as he can towards safety. Flashing a bright, unwavering smile despite the chaos, the brave guard vows with all his heart that he will protect his highness no matter what happens to himself. Back in the present day, sunlight streams into the magnificent imperial office as Crown Prince Britain knocks politely on the doorframe, announcing his arrival before entering. Dressed in a pristine white uniform, young Crown Prince Britain stands before the desk, his sharp blue eyes looking serious and focused. Setting down his paperwork, Emperor Pamela inquires if last night's security breach by the pawn was fully dealt with, to which Britain confirms that the second prince's lingering rebels were rounding up after planning a covert assault. Pamela's gaze turns sharp as he specifically asks whether those traitors were deliberately targeting Arenal during their surprise raid. Pamela's overprotective dad mode activates the instant Arenal's name is mentioned. He cares more about her safety than state security. Britain clarifies that the assassins didn't know Arenal's true identity, but they viciously tried to execute her on the spot to silence any witnesses, suspecting an Imperial insider helped them bypass the perimeter guards. Agreeing that a thorough internal purge is required, Pamela's eyes narrow as he prepares to investigate the traitorous palace staff responsible. Leaning back in his chair, Pamela tilts his head in curiosity, asking Britain how he and Arenal managed to buy enough time for Duke Tremont's knights to arrive at the pond. Pamela points out that Britain was completely unarmed against a squad of fully armored assassins, asking with a subtle smirk how two children survive such odds. Looking down at his hands in solemn stillness, Britain quietly confesses to his father that he owes his entire life to Arenal's miraculous intervention. Flashback magic swirls as Britain describes the shocking moment Arenal unleashed a colossal wave of radiant spirit force that blew the heavy assassins off their feet. Just look at Pamela's cheek blushing. He's practically bursting with pride, realizing his future daughter-in-law stepped up like an absolute boss. Pamela's eyes widen in utter surprise, a faint flush of amazed amusement touching his face as he hears how Arenal stood valiantly as a shield to protect Britain. Deep inside Pamela's chest, a bittersweet memory stirs, comparing Arenal's selfless courage to the brave guard who sacrificed everything to save him so many years ago. Lowering his head in deep humility, young Britain admits how painfully helpless he felt during the fight, standing behind a girl while she fought off dangerous foes. A fiery surge of resolve glints in Britain's blue eyes as he silently swears to train relentlessly so Arenal will never have to face such life-threatening danger again. A few days pass under brilliant blue skies as white butterflies flutter peacefully through the lush royal garden trees. Grunting with determined effort, Hoffs, a pair of small dainty hands, firmly grips the leather handles of a heavy traveling trunk. Dressed in a breathtaking sky blue frilled dress and a matching bonnet hat, Arenal stands proudly beside her massive suitcase with the most radiant smile. Her Yenna looks like a little fashion icon, ready to launch a multi-million-dollar sugar bead empire. Look at that adorable confidence. Her loyal knight, Adam, chuckles softly, reporting that a massive crowd of aristocrats has already assembled. assembled, while Arenelle giggles excitedly, eager to kick off her huge public event. Looking up at Edom with sparkling golden eyes, Arenelle sweetly thanks him for all his tireless hard work behind the scenes in organizing everything. Surrounded by glowing yellow blossoms, Arenelle beams with absolute triumph, declaring that their grand plan to distribute red sugar beets across the empire has officially taken its very first step toward victory.